Welcome to Infinite Novel Audio. Like, subscribe, and enjoy this video. Chapter 1, Kazan. Heard that eggplant has the habit of losing his brain, so I'll add a layer 2. Brain depository, promise me, remember to take it back after reading. Konoha Ninja Academy. This was one of the most important constructions during the tenure of the second Hokage, Senju Tobarama. In just a few decades, it had supplied a massive number of talents to the Konoha ninja village. The current third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, the first Pot Hokage, Danzo Shimura, and the two advisors, including the third Hokage's 3 disciples, Jiraiya Orochimaru Tsunade, and so on. These pillars of Konoha today all walked out of this school. It can be said that the Ninja Academy has become the most important part of Konoha Ninja Village. At this moment, in one of the classrooms of the Ninja Academy, a Chunin teacher stood on the podium holding a form. The kids whose names were called went up to perform their 3 basic jutsus. Next, Kazan. After the teacher spoke, a dim-witted-looking kid left his seat and walked to the podium. The content of today's exam was the clone jutsu, one of the 3 basic jutsus. Although this is a ninja academy, they generally only teach students the basic 3 basic jutsus, chakra extraction methods, and a few other non-lethal techniques. The founding of Konoha was formed by the combination of multiple ninja clans by the first Hokage. To realize his childhood dream of not letting children go to the battlefield, Senju Hashirama created the first ninja village in history. The current third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, even goes around saying, "We are all one family." But when it comes down to it, high-level goods like ninjutsu are the bargaining chips for the major ninja clans to establish themselves, especially certain special secret techniques, which are absolutely never passed on to outsiders. If civilian ninjas want to study, there are only 3 methods. The first one is the easiest: take a master. Like one of the Sannin, Jiraiya, who was born a civilian but became a disciple of the third Hokage. Plus, when he first learned the summoning jutsu, he accidentally reverse-summoned himself to Mount Myaboku. These opportunities created the world-famous hero of Konoha. The second one is more troublesome: accumulate contributions by completing missions, and then redeem them in the village. The third one depends on talent: create it yourself. If you have the ninjutsu talent of Senju Tobarama or Orochimaru, the above problems are not problems at all. And Kazan. Bearing such an awesome name, his ninjutsu talent was mediocre, and he had no ninja family support behind him. Bang! With a puff of smoke, Kazan quickly formed seals and created a clone identical to himself. 60 points passing. The teacher nodded at Kazan and recorded his name and score in his notebook. There was no expression on Kazan's face. He dispelled the clone and walked back to his seat. He had no fluctuation in his grades. As a transmigrator, he was a cheater with a golden finger. Ever since he was born in this world, a template of Monkey D. Garp had come to this world with him. It was that legendary Gyokyu king who ran to Hachinosu Island, got beaten up, and was mocked by fan groups. He Gyokyu'd with Golden Lion and Sengoku, Gyokyu'd with Rox and Roger, and in the end in the manga, he even fought Imu at God Valley, turning into the marine hero, that Garp. So since he even had the Garp template, does ninjutsu really matter? While he was thinking, an exclamation erupted in the classroom. Kazan looked up. It turned out that the Uchiha brat had gone on stage to perform. Compared to Kazan, who could barely make 1 clone, the Uchiha brat's clone jutsu count reached a full 7. As expected of the Uchiha, the teacher first gave a compliment and then recorded it, full marks. Uchiha Jing heard this and walked off the stage expressionlessly. Greeting him were the screams and worship of the girls in the classroom. Jing-kun, so amazing. As expected of a genius, first place again this exam. That's right, ever since Kakashi graduated early, Jing-kun has always been first. Countless girls' eyes were sparkling, but there were also some untimely voices. Like Uchiha Obito, who wore goggles even in class. What's so great about it? If it weren't for eating the wrong thing and having diarrhea today, I could have gotten full marks too. The naturally evil Uchiha brat was even worse than Kazan. He was the super dead last of the class. His grades were barely better than Might Guy, who could only make a set of clothes with the clone jutsu. And not far from Obito, a bowl-cut kid with a red scarf and striking thick eyebrows was staring at Uchiha Jing with burning eyes. That gaze was even more enthusiastic than those girls. So amazing, father was right, the school is a place where hidden tigers and crouching dragons reside. Decided, after finishing 500 laps around the playground after school, I will challenge Kakashi. Hey Kazan, let's go burn our youth together. Ding tilde. As he said that, he even gave Kazan a wink, revealing teeth so white they could reflect light. My youth is very precious, not luxurious enough to be burned. If you want to burn, burn yourself. Kazan rested his chin on his hand. It was now the 42nd year of Konoha, and only a few years had passed since the end of the Second Shinobi World War. However, by the 43rd year of Konoha, the Third Shinobi World War was about to break out. When Kazan strolled around the village recently, he could see a trace of gravity on the faces of the ninjas returning to the village. Unsurprisingly, that unlucky Kazekage from the hidden sand village who was made into a puppet had been missing for a while. Now the atmosphere at the border was very tense, and all-out war was only a matter of time. In the Sengoku era, the ninja world was very chaotic. Ninja groups were mercenaries for major countries at the time, and fighting happened all the time, basically small fights every 3 days and big fights every 5 days. Then, Senju Hashirama gathered the disparate ninja groups together and ended this chaotic era. But the disputes did not stop. Instead, they developed in a direction that Senju Hashirama had not anticipated. The era of ninja villages appeared, the number of battles decreased, but the scale multiplied. With the establishment of Konoha, other large and small ninja groups in the ninja world, in order not to be swallowed up or for other reasons, also followed Konoha's example and gathered to form the Super Three Giants. They cooperated with the country and used the financial resources of the great powers to establish ninja villages, and the ninja villages became the swords in the hands of the great powers. Now there are no frequent battles, but once they start, those selling coffins in the entire ninja world will get rich. Kazan didn't need a good memory to know that every time a Shinobi World War reached the end, the ninja villages would send newly graduated children to the battlefield due to a lack of manpower. In such a life and death moment, no one would care if you just graduated. If I want to save my dog life on the battlefield, I have to have at least Jonin level combat power. Kazan didn't know what his combat power was now. Although he had a system, after the system brother gave him a Garp template and some cultivation methods, it began a long diving career. He currently had no idea how hard his iron fists were, but he practiced very hard every day. Thinking of this, Kazan glanced at Uchiha Jing, who was sitting in his seat after scoring 100 points, pretending to be an expert without saying a word, and wondered whether he should go and give him a shot. Chapter 2, Taijutsu has no future. The third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, was the longest-serving Hokage. As Hokage, he was deeply loved by the villagers, mostly because Danzo Shimura took the fall for all the dirty work. In the words of Danzo, Hiruzen Sarutobi lived his entire life bathed in the sunshine. Yet, even such a Hokage went against the original intention of Senju Hashirama when he founded the ninja village, forcing children onto the battlefield as cannon fodder. During Hiruzen Sarutobi's tenure, whenever war broke out, the Ninja Academy would forgo graduation exams, and children were forced to graduate at the age of 9. Kazan looked at the other children in the classroom. There were the current Ino, Shika, Cho, Kurenai Yuhai, Asuma Sarutobi, and many other second-generation ninjas. These individuals had family support and were part of the Hokage faction, ensuring some level of survival. Civilian ninjas like Kazan, however, did not enjoy such treatment. Capable team leaders were assigned to lead these descendants of ninja clans, leaving only those with average abilities for the rest. Better to rely on oneself than others. Why worry so much? Kazan turned his head to look at the scenery outside the window. Possessing Garp's template and his training memories, his future achievements would surely be significant. As long as he could safely survive the Third Shinobi World War, he would be set. However, since he began training at the age of 4, Kazan had yet to make any substantial progress. He could not practice Rokushiki because his physical strength was not up to standard, and the 3 types of haki had not awakened either. His fist-bone series of skills were also just for show, lacking the enhancement of haki. He was far from being able to blow up Hachinosu Island with a single punch. However, compared to Might Guy, my physical constitution is indeed much better. The combat power in the world of One Piece might not be as power-crept as the 6 paths level in the ninja world, but in that world, everyone was a tank. Aokiji and Akinu could fight for 10 days and 10 nights before a winner was decided. Therefore, in terms of physical condition, even Might Guy, who focused on taijutsu, could not compare to him. Lunchtime. During lunch, the excited students gathered together, and the topic inevitably turned to their classmate, Kakashi Hatake. I heard from my dad that Kakashi just completed an A-rank mission with his team leader. Really? It's true, although I hate to admit it, Kakashi is truly amazing. A group of second-generation ninjas couldn't help but sigh. As a genius who had broken Ninja Academy history by graduating early at the age of 5, Kakashi was quite famous throughout Konoha. If news were to spread one day that Kakashi had become a jonin, they probably wouldn't be too surprised. Kazan, try this. Kazan was very sociable. Although he didn't have much in common with a bunch of brats, he didn't run off to some unknown corner of the school to eat alone like Uchiha Jing. The reason was simple: someone was willing to feed him. Possessing Garp's template and his training memories, his future achievements would surely be significant. As long as he could safely survive the Third Shinobi World War, he would be set. Kazan, possessing Garp's template, had also inherited Garp's trait of being a big eater. Others would have a small bento for lunch and be full after a few bites. Kazan couldn't do that. He needed dozens of rice balls to barely fill his stomach. Nom tilde. Kazan looked at the meat Kurenai Yuhai picked up for him, opened his mouth, and swallowed it in one bite. Thanks, Kurenai. You're welcome, I can't eat this much by myself. Kurenai Yuhai looked at the chopsticks Kazan had bitten, feeling a little shy, and then licked the tip of the chopsticks with her tongue. Asuma Sarutobi, who was not far away, saw this and exploded on the spot. Hey Kazan, don't sit with girls every time you eat. Eat with us occasionally. People who don't know might think you're a girl. The other brats laughed out loud upon hearing this. No, it has nothing to do with Kazan. I was the one who asked Kazan. Before Kazan could speak, Kurenai Yuhai spoke up for him first. Kazan's appearance was not as delicate and handsome as the Uchiha or Kakashi, but he looked spirited and energetic. Combined with a maturity that didn't match his age. In short, Kurenai Yuhai felt that Kazan was very different from the other boys. Kazan gave Asuma a look, letting him figure it out for himself. Then with a slow-motion move of his left hand and right hand, he polished off dozens of rice balls in just a few bites. Here. Thanks. Kazan took the water Kurenai Yuhai handed him, downed it in one go, then stood up and walked out of the classroom. Going to train again. Yeah, my fists aren't hard enough, and they aren't fast enough. How hardworking. Kurenai Yuhai watched Kazan leave before focusing on her own lunch. She had fed most of it to Kazan, but since she had a small appetite, she was still full. To this guy, all he knows is how to punch every day. Just punching, can he really become an excellent ninja? Asuma complained to his companions. Ninja battles are dominated by ninjutsu. What can you possibly achieve by relying only on taijutsu? Just look at Might Guy, he couldn't even get into the Ninja Academy for a while. I can't pretend I didn't hear that. Hyuga Asuka of the Hyuga clan stood up. The secret technique of the Hyuga clan was the gentle fist, which, when used in conjunction with their bloodline limit, the Byakugan, made them a renowned ninja family in the ninja world. And the gentle fist, to some extent, was a form of taijutsu. Let's duel, son of the Hokage. Hyuga Asuka was aggressive. Even though you were the son of the third Hokage, his Byakugan clan wasn't afraid of you. The Uchiha and the Hyuga were like that. They looked at everyone else as if they were inferior to them. Fight then, see you at the playground. Asuma was already fired up, and now that someone had stuck their neck out, he immediately accepted the challenge. These damn Uchiha and Hyuga, if he didn't beat them up, they'd think Konoha belonged to them. Kazan was unaware of these events. he had arrived at a deserted place and begun his daily training. His daily training tasks were modeled after the Marine elite camp. 2,000 push-ups, 100 round trips of rope climbing, a 200-lap long-distance run, as well as combat training and more. He felt his body could withstand more. After all, he had Garp's template. Every day after completing his fixed training, he would try to challenge his own limits. Bangs, bangs, bang. His fists landed repeatedly on the wooden stake, each punch delivered with his full strength. No matter how tough the wooden stake was, it would deform and then shatter under his frenzied pounding. After countless punches, the entire wooden stake was blasted apart by his fist with a boom. Kazan took a breath, brought over a new wooden stake he had prepared, and continued to punch away. Compared to Garp using mountains to train, Kazan hitting wooden stakes was simply child's play. It wasn't until the class bell rang that Kazan stopped. He quickly rinsed off, changed his clothes, and headed back to class. I wonder when my body will meet the requirements to practice 6 styles. And the shadow clone technique, I have to find a way to get my hands on that too. The ninja world had a training exploit, the shadow clone technique and the multi-shadow clone technique. This technique was created by the second Hokage, who modeled it after the first Hokage's wood clone. It could create solid clones to fight. However, the greatest use of this technique lay in the fact that when a clone was dispelled or destroyed, it could return memories, including sensations of pain and fatigue, to the original body. As long as his spirit and willpower were strong enough, Kazan could even practice 6 styles simultaneously. Chapter 3: Hero Emiya. The shadow clone technique and the multi-shadow clone technique, Kazan wanted to get his hands on them no matter what. Back in the classroom, Kazan sat in his seat and listened to the lecture. Life at the Ninja Academy was fairly relaxed. The group of brats spent their days giggling and carefree. However, people in the world of the Hokage are generally precocious. If you hadn't seen it with your own eyes, it would be hard to imagine that a group of kids under 10 years old had already started competing for the opposite sex. Kazan was actually quite popular with the girls in class. He didn't have the genius aura that Kakashi possessed, but he was handsome enough. Asuma and his crowd thought Kazan ate like a hungry dog scavenging for scraps, but Kurenai Yuhai and some of the other girls just found him heroic and passionate. However, these young brats were truly simple-minded. Their way of attracting girls was either to put down other boys to elevate themselves, or to play pranks to annoy the girls and grab their attention. Even if they got scolded, as long as they could speak to the girl, they would be happy for the rest of the day. That's right, I'm talking about you, Uchiha Obito. HMPH, isn't that guy Kakashi just lucky to have a good father? Sooner or later, I will surpass that guy. Obito said brazenly. He spoke loudly, but in reality, he was mostly saying it for Rin Nohara to hear. Obito, Rin Nohara, who had been listening intently, suddenly said loudly, "Don't joke about Lord White Fang." Later, she looked a bit angry, and Obito seemed to realize he had gone too far. After an "oh," he whispered, "Sorry." Then Rin Nohara forgave him, and the two continued chatting happily. Kazan watched everything unfold. It's no wonder Obito turned to the dark side after witnessing Rin Nohara's death. As a dead last, having such a cute girl by your side to care for you, look after you, and listen to your complaints. Who could refuse that? Who could not fall in love? If it weren't for White Fang's suicide and Kakashi's drastic change in personality, perhaps even Kakashi might have fallen for her eventually. In the blink of an eye, school was over. Many parents were standing at the gate of the Ninja Academy, waiting to pick up their children. Kazan twisted his neck and stood up. Not far away, the bowl-cut Mike guy was already looking at him, flashing his signature, white teeth. Let's begin, Kazan, let's go burn our youth together. I've told you, my youth isn't meant to be burned. Kazan changed into his training clothes and began sprinting at full speed around the Ninja Academy track. Lap after lap. He wouldn't stop until his body reached its limit. This happened almost every day. Look, it's those 2 kids again. Ah, I heard they can't use ninjutsu and their grades at the Ninja Academy are terrible. They can't use ninjutsu. If they can't use ninjutsu, why did the Ninja Academy admit them? Who knows, perhaps the third is just too benevolent. Parents gossiped, occasionally telling their own children to stay away from those two weirdos. Attending the Ninja Academy without learning ninjutsu, what's the difference between that and watching a movie without taking off your pants? At this moment, two vigorous voices rang out simultaneously. Might Dai and his son Might Guy, full of energy, gave a thumbs up toward the parents, hands on their hips, and shouted in unison, all in arigato. They are absolutely sick in the head. That was the collective thought of the parents at that moment. But Might Dai and his son were used to it. They had heard similar things too many times. Might Dai, who could not use ninjutsu or genjutsu and only possessed taijutsu, was Konoha's infamous eternal genin. Cold stares, mockery, contempt. These things had accompanied the father and son since Might Guy could remember. Facing doubt and disapproval, the two took it as the motivation to push themselves forward. Their youth was just that unique. The parents hurriedly walked away as if dodging a plague, afraid of being infected. After doing all that, Might Dai bent down to instruct his son. Hurry now, Guy, Kazan is already 5 laps ahead of you. This means your youth is lagging behind Kazan by a full 5 laps. I will definitely catch up to Kazan. As soon as I close the 5-lap gap, I will challenge Kakashi. After saying that, Might Guy immediately stepped onto the track and sprinted after Kazan's figure. Might Dai stood with his hands on his hips, his eyes shining brightly. Keep it up, Guy, Kazan doesn't take those rumors to heart at all. Might Dai was very fond of the boy, Kazan. He still remembered when his son, because he had been mocked, angrily went up to argue, only to get beaten up severely. Might Dai was touched at the time, knowing his son went to demand justice for his sake. But Guy, true victory, is not as simple as defeating the strong. The young Might Guy, of course, didn't know what the youth Might Dai spoke of really was. His eyes were now only fixed on Kazan, who was always running ahead of him. I must surpass you, Kazan. He cheered himself on wildly, trying with all his might to catch up. Meanwhile, Kurenai Yuhai and Rin Nohara, having finished cleaning the classroom, were preparing to head back. The two were chatting and laughing as they walked. When they reached the window, the spot with the best view of the playground, Kurenai Yuhai stopped in her tracks. There Kazan was running with all his might. This scene was just like Hiro Emiya's high jump. Rin Nohara also stopped and followed Kurenai's gaze. Kazan is really persistent, isn't he? Yeah. Kurenai Yuhai replied with a yeah, her red eyes watching without blinking. When it came to ninjutsu and genjutsu, Kazan's talent was quite average, so he threw himself into taijutsu without hesitation. This persistence and the attitude of not giving up in the face of setbacks were very attractive to her. So, is that the reason Kurenai likes Kazan? Yeah, Kurenai instinctively said, yeah, but immediately realized what she had done and frantically waved her hands. No, Rin, what are you talking about? That's not it. She denied it vehemently, but seeing Rin Nohara's face beaming with an increasingly bright smile, she let her hands drop in surrender. Fine, she did indeed like Kazan. Seeing this, Rin Nohara, looking as if she had won a great battle, pressed on. By the way, Kurenai, how did you meet Kazan? I remember on the first day of school, your eyes were always looking in Kazan's direction. You must have known him back then, right? When did she meet him? Kurenai Yuhai fell into memory. It was probably a snowy day, the same one when Naruto and Hinata first met. At that time, she was less than 5 years old, and hadn't yet enrolled in the Ninja Academy. That day, she had been playing in the park with other children until dark, as usual, and was getting ready to go home. As it turned out, a vicious dog appeared on her way back, and she was terrified. She still remembered that the dog had lunged at her, and as the daughter of Shinku Yuhai, she was so scared that she couldn't move, her legs trembling uncontrollably. It was at this moment that Kazan descended beside her like the god of Shinobi from a novel. Bang! A sound that she still remembered to this day. It was the loudest punch Kurenai Yuhai had ever heard. When she opened her eyes, Kazan was still holding his punching stance, and the dog had already been sent flying by him, crashing into a snowdrift. At that time, Kazan didn't even glance at her. He just walked over, picked up the unconscious dog and carried it away, seemingly saying something like, "Dinner is sorted." No, that's not right. She must have misheard. Kazan probably said he was going to help it find its owner. I didn't expect that Kurenai and Kazan had such an experience. Rin Nohara felt a bit envious, finding it romantic, and fantasized that one day Kakashi could descend from the sky just like that. However, she felt that Kurenai probably hadn't misheard. Given Kazan's personality, where he could stuff even dark cuisine into his mouth, the dog had likely ended up in Kazan's stomach that very night. Chapter 4: Forest of Death. It was unknown how much time had passed when Kazan, feeling his body reaching its limit, stopped. He took off his shirt and wrung it out hard. Sweat poured like an open faucet, splashing onto the dry playground. This was all proof of his hard work. "Are you heading back, Kazan?" Seeing him stop, Might Guy also came to a halt. From the very beginning, he had been trying hard to catch up to Kazan, but as a result, he had fallen from being 5 laps behind to a full 15 laps behind, and he was already exhausted. He was holding on entirely by willpower. "Yeah, if it gets any later, it'll be troublesome." "That's it for today, Guy, see you." Kazan hung his wrung-out shirt over his shoulder and left the Ninja Academy without looking back. Soon the sun would set, and he had to take care of his dinner. Once he had completely disappeared, Might Guy also walked over. "Let's head back to Guy." "Yeah." Might Guy followed his old man and headed back as well. On the way, he couldn't help but ask, "Dad, can I really become a powerful ninja?" "Of course," Might Guy answered without hesitation. He pressed his thumb against his heart and said, "Only sweat will never let you down. Every run you take is a roar from your youth." "But even in taijutsu, I can't compare to Kazan." Might Guy's voice was a bit low. He had no talent for ninjutsu, and he was completely clueless about genjutsu. Back when the Ninja Academy was enrolling, he was almost the only one to be rejected. It was his father's constant encouragement that kept him going, eventually moving the 3rd Hokage to let him enter the Ninja Academy. He had thought that as long as he kept working hard, one day he would be able to catch up to the others and prove himself and his father's ninja way. But upon arriving at the Ninja Academy, he met Kazan. In terms of ninjutsu talent, he was inferior to Kakashi. Now, even in terms of taijutsu talent, he was inferior to Kazan. The gap of a full 15 laps was not just a simple number. It meant that the energy contained within his body was far inferior to that of Kazan, a genius who had abandoned ninjutsu to focus solely on taijutsu. Even in terms of effort, he was not as good as Kazan or Kakashi. He had witnessed Kakashi training alone more than once, and he had even seen Kazan walk out of that forest of death with injuries. He was too weak. Just as Guy was feeling dejected, Might Guy's fist swung out, sending Might Guy flying several meters away. "Idiot Guy. Precisely because they are walking ahead of you, you must move forward and catch up even faster along the path they have carved. Listen to me well, youth is a train with no return. Guys who are always afraid of failure, worrying about failure, will never achieve success. Be brave. Don't ask yourself if you can defeat them, but rather ask yourself what you should do to be able to defeat them." Might Guy imparted his life wisdom to his son. Might Guy clearly hadn't expected his father to say such profound truths, and that it wasn't just the usual, "the moment of death is the climax of youth" type of talk. For a moment, Might Guy's eyes regained clarity, and he shouted to his old man, "I understand, Dad." "Guy." The father and son hugged each other in the street and wept bitterly. Passers-by stayed away, all afraid of this pair of crazy father and son. Meanwhile, Kazan had already arrived at the Forest of Death. His dinner was right here. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribers, and share to Infinite Novel Audio. With the growth of his strength and age, the energy Kazan's body needed to consume every day was immense. An ordinary ninja could be full with a bowl of rice, a bowl of miso soup, a fish, and some vegetables. But for Kazan, that could only count as an appetizer. Although he wouldn't starve to death, it was far from enough to satisfy the human treasure brought about by the Garp Template. He needed a large amount of food to satisfy his body's overly active cells, allowing them to ingest enough energy to realize his body's potential. Kazan walked familiarly into this forest of death, which made the villagers of Konoha tremble with fear. As the venue for the Chunin exams, the forest of death was inhabited by a large number of wild beasts, giant snakes over 100 meters long, giant bears the size of houses, giant apes that could leap dozens of meters. Such creatures were everywhere in the forest of death. Just as he stepped into the outer perimeter, a pair of scarlet eyes suddenly lit up, and crystal-clear saliva dripped from sharp teeth. Kazan looked over, and a fierce tiger the size of a small house walked out from the shadows behind a large tree. "Been waiting a long time, Hakami," he chuckled and waved. A miraculous thing happened. The fierce tiger, which Kazan had named Hakami, turned into a sycophant, pouncing over and affectionately licking Kazan's face with its tongue. It was Kazan's hunting dog, picked up by Kazan 2 years ago when it was still a cub. The mother tiger must have died in a fight with other fierce beasts, leaving Hakami to run out to the outer perimeter of the forest of death. It was fortunate that Kazan had just eaten his fill at the time, or Hakami wouldn't have escaped being put into a pot and cooked. "Let's go." "It's raw." Hakami immediately lay down, letting Kazan sit on its back. Afterward, the man and the tiger charged toward the interior of the forest of death. Soon they found their target, a grizzly bear even larger than Hakami. At this moment, the grizzly bear also discovered them, locking its target directly onto Hakami. Kazan on the tiger's back didn't even catch its bare eyes. He was just a bipedal beast, and it could slap him to death dozens of times with one paw. It clearly didn't know who was the boss. "That's the one, go Hakija." Kazan leaped high from the tiger's back, and Hakami, hearing the command, did not hesitate and pounced toward the grizzly bear. The grizzly bear stood up on its hind legs to meet Hakami's pounce. With a loud boom, the grizzly bear was knocked down on the spot, but it didn't matter. It quickly slapped Hakami away, knocking it into a tree not far away. But before the grizzly bear could climb up from the ground, that bipedal beast had already descended from the sky. Fist bone. Kazan clenched his right fist, his figure plummeting like a meteorite. Impact. Under the grizzly bear's gaze, his fist rapidly enlarged from small to big. Then, with a loud boom, Kazan's fist smashed straight onto the grizzly bear's head. It was a fist without any haki enhancement, let alone advanced conqueror's haki. It was simply a punch with chakra added to it. Yet that very punch nearly sent the grizzly bear to meet its great-grandmother on the spot. "It's raw." The injured grizzly bear went mad, blood flowing from its pupils, and with its vision impaired, it kept swinging its bare paws, snapping countless giant trees in half. Kazan retreated to Hakami's side, squeezed his left shoulder with his right hand, and shook his left hand to loosen up his body. "It's still not dead, tough enough." Hakami responded, raw. "Don't bite its paws, I want to eat bear paw tonight, and I don't want to eat your saliva." After saying that, he launched himself forward again, roared fist-bone impact, and smashed another punch over. Chapter 5 Kakashi Hatake. Boom! As the grizzly bear's massive body hit the ground, it signaled that Kazan and Hakami had won their dinner for the day. "My current combat strength is at least at the Chunin level now, right?" Kazan dropped from the air, and the moment his feet touched the ground, there was even the unique clack sound effect from the Pirate King world. The Forest of Death was one of the stages in the original Konoha Chunin exams. Candidates needed to pass through the Forest of Death and collect items from other candidates to clear the stage. Therefore, in that Chunin exam, the crisis candidates faced in the Forest of Death stage was the beasts of the Forest of Death as well as other candidates. Since Kazan could treat the Forest of Death as his own hunting ground, he definitely possessed Chunin-level combat strength. "Don't drool, drag this guy to the outskirts." Kazan rubbed the tiger's head, and then the man and the tiger returned to the outskirts of the Forest of Death. He didn't want to be attacked by other beasts while eating. Although the Forest of Death was dangerous, the creatures in the outskirts were not much different from ordinary animals. The overlords of the forest all lived in the deepest parts. In the outskirts, once Hakami lay down there, no creatures dared to approach. After finding some firewood and processing the bear meat, Kazan practiced his punches while grilling. The Forest of Death was good in every way. It had ingredients, dry firewood and water, and the scenery was even quite nice, green and lush, just like Baekyang's scalp. It just took too long to roast the meat. During this time, Hakami kept going back and forth to add firewood, and occasionally brought back some wild fruits and mushrooms for Kazan to make soup. This thing seems to be poisonous, right? I took a nap after eating it last time. But it tastes pretty good. Looking at the purple mushrooms Hakami brought back, Kazan washed a handful and threw them into the pot to boil. He didn't know if it was just because the physique of people from the Pirate King world was so tough, or if Garp had extraordinary individual talent. Kazan was immune to most poisonous ingredients. Once he took that purple mushroom back and gave it to the puppy raised by his neighbor. With one bite, the puppy immediately acted like it was having an epileptic seizure, twitching on the ground and foaming at the mouth. Kazan panicked at the time, hurriedly threw away the mushroom in his hand, and thoughtfully ran into the neighbor's house to tell them that their dog had eaten the wrong thing and kicked the bucket. He still remembered that the 6-year-old little girl next door cried very sadly that night. After a while, Kazan was tired from punching, and the fragrant smell of meat finally drifted into his nose. Finally done, my stomach is almost flat from hunger. Kazan took out his knife, cut off the roasted part, sprinkled it with cumin and other seasonings, and was about to take a bite when Hakami poked him with its paw. What is it? Awu tilde. It let out an awu and pointed at the meat in front of itself. It's cooked, you can eat it. Awu tilde. It continued to awu, its tiger eyes fixed on the cumin powder. Fine, it wanted some too. There are so many tigers in this world, but you're the one living the most luxuriously. You even want cumin sprinkled on your grilled meat. Kazan rolled his eyes and gave some to Hakami as well. With that, the man and the tiger began to feast. Soon, a bear was finished off by them, and Kazan fell asleep immediately, his belly bulging like a ball, with a satisfied smile on his face. Hakami was also full, snuggling against Kazan with its fur to make him sleep more comfortably, and whenever there was any disturbance, it would immediately open its eyes to be vigilant of the surroundings. I told you this damn mushroom was poisonous, I'm sleepy again. After saying that, bubbles were already forming from his nose, and he fell fast asleep. It was dark. Moonlight shone into the Forest of Death, and with a pop, the bubble from Kazan's nose burst. He rubbed his eyes, sat up, stretched, and let out a groan. So comfortable, baby. Looking up at the sky, the moon hung in the Milky Way, emitting a cold, eerie luster. It's so late already, I'm heading back. Awu tilde. Hakami also stood up and rubbed its head against him. All right. Don't act like a pet cat for real, I'll come back after school tomorrow. Awu tilde. Only then did Hakami turn and walk into the Forest of Death. Kazan left too, leaping up and jumping over the fence of the Forest of Death from the trees, still holding a piece of bear skin in his hand. It's a bit late, I'll take this thing to sell tomorrow. Kazan had no parents in this world, because they had died in battle, not long after he was born. Konoha would distribute some silver every month to help him grow up, letting other ninjas in the village know that even if they unfortunately kicked the bucket, their children would be taken care of. But that meager amount of money wasn't enough for Kazan to eat. As his body developed, he would definitely use weighted training gear later to constantly challenge his physical limits and activate his human potential, and that stuff wasn't cheap. Therefore, Kazan would always take bear skins and other things he hunted to sell. There was no shortage of market for this. If it weren't for the long distance, he would have run to the land of fire himself to sell it to those rich people. Now, he had to let the merchants of Konoha make a profit on the price difference, so the price wouldn't be that high. On the way back, many people greeted Kazan. Everyone quite liked this naive-looking little guy. Yo Kazan, you're back. You even brought back such a large piece of bear skin today. As expected of the Ninja Academy, they even teach hunting techniques. A middle-aged man sat at his doorstep, crossing his legs and basking in the moonlight. Seeing Kazan, he teased him a couple of times. People living here knew that Kazan went to the Ninja Academy but didn't learn ninjutsu. Instead, he was good for nothing and just went to practice boxing. Kazan paused, then turned back and shouted loudly in the direction of the man. Sister Xianglin, I saw your husband taking advantage of the Black Widow while selling fish this morning to touch her hand, and he didn't even collect the money afterward. What? A scream came from inside the house, and then a woman came running out, holding a knife in her hand. The man who had just been teasing Kazan immediately beat a hasty retreat. I didn't. Don't listen to this little bastard Kazan's nonsense. I did collect the money. Did you hear that, Sister Xianglin? He didn't deny touching her hand. Ah, damn it, you little rascal Kazan, you just wait. The street was suddenly filled with laughter, everyone watching Kazan, this little troublemaker, with amusement. HMPH, you little trash, you dare to mock me. Kazan continued walking with a look of disdain. However, not long after, he saw a white-haired guy wearing a mask walking over from the other side of the street. Kakashi. What a coincidence, I just happen to want to test if my fists are hard enough now. Chapter 6, A Lost Person is Too Weak. Yo Kakashi, you're back. I heard you've been quite active lately. Seeing him, Kazan immediately blocked Kakashi's path. The latter looked up, realized it was Kazan, and without a word, tried to walk around him to continue on his way. He was dressed exactly as remembered, carrying a short blade on his back, except the Sharingan was still in Obito's eye socket, making his style a bit less cool compared to the original work. Kazan stepped sideways, blocking his path again. What do you want? Kakashi finally spoke, frowning with an unfriendly look in his eyes. At this stage, Kakashi treated all his companions the same. Whether it was Rin Nohara, Uchiha Obito, Might Guy, or Asuma Sarutobi, it was all the same. They were just a bunch of brats who hadn't grown up yet. They didn't understand the cruelty of the ninja world, enjoying a peaceful life under the protection of their elders. Let's find a place and have a fight, genius. I have no interest in fighting you. Move aside, I'm going home. Of course, Kakashi wouldn't fight Kazan. They hadn't spent much time together, but he knew that, like Might Guy, Kazan only practiced taijutsu. Furthermore, his father had spoken very highly of Kazan. Father. Thinking of this word, he couldn't help but recall that night when his beloved father, the White Fang of the Leaf, committed suicide at home. A ninja's duty is to complete missions, not to be competitive like a child. Oh, so you mean we don't need to find a place? Then let's start right here. Kazan casually tossed aside the bear skin, pushed off with his feet, and his body shot out like a cannonball, throwing a punch straight at Kakashi's face. You guy, didn't I tell you I don't want to fight you? Kakashi crossed his arms in front of his chest, hurriedly blocking. Bang! He was sent flying by Kazan's punch. Such monstrous strength reminded Kakashi of Tsunade, one of the Sannin, who also possessed such freakish power. When a man faces a challenge, there is no option to back down. Kazan continued to press forward. He made up an excuse on the fly. Regardless, Kakashi wasn't escaping this fight today. As a genius, Kakashi graduated from the Ninja Academy at 5, promoted to Chunin in a year, and became a Jonin by 12. He hadn't been promoted to Jonin yet, but Genin, Chunin, or Jonin, they were just titles. What mattered was strength. Haven't you seen Konoha Genin fighting all the way to the moon? Even if Kakashi didn't have Jonin-level combat power yet, it shouldn't be far off. So fast. By the time Kazan finished speaking, he had already closed the distance to Kakashi again, making the latter feel a chill run down his spine. Even though they both specialized in taijutsu, he could fight Might Guy to a draw, but Kazan put immense pressure on him. Bang! Another punch swung out with strong wind pressure. Kakashi didn't retreat this time. He blocked the punch with his arm, then turned and swept Kazan away a few meters with a whip kick. Kazan was fine, habitually cracking his neck. He said, "Not bad, much stronger than when you were at the Ninja Academy. It seems the world outside the village really does train people better than the academy." The ninja world isn't as beautiful as you imagine, Kazan. Kakashi's eyes turned cold. I'll say this one last time, I'm going home. If you don't want to get hurt, get out of my sight. His tone was very light, devoid of much emotion. He treated his classmates like strangers. Compared to your strength, the area where you've improved the most is your ability to talk big. Kazan grinned, unrelenting. He bent his knees, exerted force suddenly, and dashed behind Kakashi in a burst of speed. Whether the ninja world is beautiful or not, I'll see for myself. As for you, just because you experienced your father's wrongful death, don't think you're better than everyone else, Kakashi. Fist bone impact. Kazan roared in his heart, his fist tearing through the air. Unlike the previous probing, this was a full-power punch. Kakashi felt a chill on his back, but what truly made him angry were Kazan's words. Someone's tearing down the place, help. Their fight immediately alarmed the people nearby. They let out strange cries and hurriedly scrambled far away, then watched the battle between Kazan and Kakashi. That was the genius Kakashi and the little troublemaker Kazan. You don't understand anything. Kakashi was already enraged, and nobody knew when he had formed the hand seals. With a puff, the Kakashi in front of him was blown apart by Kazan's punch, turning into a puff of smoke and dissipating. The next second, Kakashi appeared behind Kazan, his fingers moving like a master pianist. In the blink of an eye, a projectile made of fire was spat out from his mouth, rushing forward with a wave of heat. Under normal circumstances, he definitely wouldn't use ninjutsu inside the village. It was against the rules. But tonight, he had been provoked by Kazan. A ninja's duty is to complete missions. Those who cannot complete missions are worse than trash. Fire release flame bullet. Kazan wanted to punch the flame bullet away, but without having awakened armament haki, he couldn't do it yet. Sidestepping, Kazan dodged the flame bullet rapidly, letting it blast a crater behind him. The soil was scorched, but it didn't even damage his clothes. Is that so? Is that what you really think? Kazan had already exploded into full speed and arrived at Kakashi's side. But your eyes tell me that's not what you think at all. So fast. Kakashi was amazed once again by Kazan's lightning-fast speed. It turned out that hadn't even been his full power just now. He wanted to dodge, but found it was too late. He could only watch helplessly as Kazan reached out with 5 fingers and grabbed his neck like an iron clamp, choking him. Immediately, Kazan's deafening voice rang in his ears. A lost person is too weak. Kazan grabbed Kakashi and quickly took to the air, shouting loudly. Undersea drop. Kazan's right arm muscles bulged, and he slammed Kakashi toward the ground with all his might. Boom! Kakashi's small body slammed into the street like a meteor, blasting out a crater twice as large as the one caused by the flame bullet earlier. Ugh tilde. He spat out a mouthful of blood. He couldn't dodge. In the air, he couldn't even perform any evasive maneuvers. His body was controlled by the immense centrifugal force, and he didn't even have the chance to form hand seals. He could only barely gather chakra to his back to withstand the impact. Konoha's historical genius, Kakashi Hatake, was knocked unconscious just like that. However, until the very last second before losing consciousness, all that echoed in his mind were Kazan's words. Am I lost? Thud tilde. Kazan landed on the edge of the crater. Looking at the unconscious Kakashi, he felt a bit nervous, realizing he might have caused trouble. That's why I say, the guys in the Naruto world are all glass cannons. I haven't even mastered haki yet. If I did, wouldn't I kill someone in one move? Come to think of it, this guy Kakashi isn't dead, is he? Kazan carefully approached, and then gently kicked Kakashi a few times. Hey, if you're not dead, make a sound. Kakashi didn't respond at all. Kazan became even more nervous and checked Kakashi's breath. Good news, he was still breathing. Bad news, the Uchiha of the police force were already coming. He had started this fight, and he had caused the damage to the street. Plus, there were many eyewitnesses. Tusk, I told you to find somewhere else to fight, why didn't you? Chapter 7, it was Kakashi's doing. So this is the reason you two started fighting. Yeah. Just purely wanting to test how strong you are. Yeah. You idiot. Hiruzen Sarutobai's roar echoed through the late-night Hokage building. Kazan felt his eardrums vibrating and quickly covered his ears. Did your teachers never teach you that you cannot fight in the village, and even more so, you cannot use lethal ninjutsu within the village? Hiruzen Sarutobai had been working overtime every day recently. Intelligence kept coming in from the border, informing them that there was a problem in Sunagakure. Their Keizukage had not appeared for a long time, suspected to be missing or even dead, and now the Sunagakure ninja were acting like madmen. The unexplained disappearance of a village leader was a massive issue. Currently, the atmosphere at the borders of the Land of Wind, the Land of Fire, and others was tense, and war could break out at any moment. Hiruzen Sarutobi had been very busy lately, busy dealing with the constant conflicts erupting at the borders. He was so busy that by the time he got home every night, his wife and children were already fast asleep. And yet, these two brats were fighting in the street tonight, just because they wanted to test how hard their fists were. I didn't use ninjutsu, it was Kakashi's doing. Kazan rubbed his ears. Didn't use ninjutsu. You didn't use ninjutsu. That technique of yours caused far more destruction than anything Kakashi did. It was called what? Undersea drop, right? Hiruzen Sarutobi had to admit, this little guy had brought him a surprise. A surprise that was both shocking and delightful. That taijutsu technique, undersea drop, likely had a lethality reaching the level of an A-rank ninjutsu. That's not a technique, I just picked Kakashi up and threw him down. Kazan continued to quibble. However, coming back to it, Garp's taijutsu was more about overwhelming brute force. The ultimate move, Infinite Fist Bone, was essentially just continuously throwing full-power punches without pause. As for Kakashi on the side, his face had long since turned dark. Kazan's irresponsible words made him so angry he wanted to duel Kazan again. He just wanted to go home. Not only did he get beaten up, but in the end, he was being slandered as the one who did it. This was simply outrageous. And you, Kakashi, why did you mess around with Kazan? Hokage-sama, I explicitly refused, but he wouldn't let it go. You're lying. If you had refused, wouldn't it have been fine to just stand there and let me beat you? Why did you fight back? Why fight back? Kakashi's head was buzzing. What kind of bullshit logic was this? Can't I even fight back when I'm getting beaten up? Enough, both of you brats, go and fix the damaged street. Before dawn, you must not cause any inconvenience or trouble for the villagers. Hiruzen Sarutobi directly chased the two brats out of his office. As for punishment, how could you punish two kids fighting? Just letting them fix the street was enough. Hand Kakashi over to Root, Hiruzen. The moment the two left, Danzo stepped out from the shadows. Like a fixed NPC, he would refresh and appear at times like this. He had only come over after hearing that Konoha's genius, Kakashi, had been beaten up. Who knew that seeing it with his own eyes would leave him so disappointed? Knowing only taijutsu wasn't the problem, but the other party's reckless personality, shifting blame whenever he caused trouble, was seriously incompatible with the temperament of Root, and might even cause more trouble for him. Kakashi was very good. The darkness in his heart was a perfect match for Root. It wasn't enough that you got Sakumo killed, you still want to ruin his child, Danzo. Hiruzen Sarutobi bit down on his pipe, his gaze slanted behind him. Don't think I don't know that those rumors about Sakumo were spread by you. The death of White Fang was a huge loss for Konoha. That was a top-tier combat force not inferior to the Sannin, yet he died amidst rumors and gossip. I didn't get him killed, everything I said was fact. He abandoned an important mission and caused huge losses to the village. Danzo's voice was calm, without any regret. As a ninja, completing the mission should be the primary goal, and one should not mix unnecessary emotions into the mission. In the end, his death was just because he himself was too fragile. Enough, Danzo, I'm tired of hearing your twisted logic. I will not hand over Sakumo's child to you. Fine, but you must give me these people. Root's manpower needs to be replenished. The ninja world is no longer peaceful. Danzo seemed prepared. After Hiruzen Sarutobi refused, he immediately pulled out another list. It recorded many ninjas from clans loyal to the Hokage, and most of them were talented individuals from branch families. Seeing Hiruzen Sarutobi hesitate, Danzo Shimura said coldly, "You keep saying I got White Fang killed, but you are the true Hokage." White Fang died in a torrent of public opinion. Root's power was indeed great. Danzo controlled a Root ninja force not weaker than Konoha's elite Anbu. But the person with the greatest power was always the third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi. Therefore, rather than saying White Fang died from the villagers' verbal abuse, it was better to say he died in internal strife. One person was seriously injured, magnifying the consequences of mission failure infinitely, while the other stood by and watched. That was an accident. Hiruzen Sarutobi exhaled a puff of smoke. This was true, he didn't want White Fang to die. Konoha needed such a powerhouse. But in his heart, White Fang should have been a blade, a pure blade. The person to inherit his position as Hokage should rightfully be his disciple, Orochimaru. Not any ninja from a clan or a civilian genius ninja. Allowing the rumors to spread was just to slightly suppress White Fang's reputation and support in Konoha. That way, Orochimaru could naturally become Konoha's next Hokage. But White Fang chose to commit suicide at home, which was beyond his expectations. These people can be given to you, but you must investigate the matter of the third Kazekage clearly. I will. Danzo took back the list and returned to the darkness. Only Hiruzen Sarutobi remained in the office. Don't blame me, White Fang. I just trust Orochimaru more. White Fang was just as outstanding as Orochimaru. As Konoha's top combat power, either of them had the ability to hold the position of Hokage. But Orochimaru, Hiruzen Sarutobi watched him grow up, from a student, watching him become the Sannin who shook the ninja world. Compared to White Fang, Hiruzen Sarutobi trusted Orochimaru more. Immediately after, he used the telescope technique to peek at Kazan and Kakashi again. Kazan was often looked down upon in school because he didn't practice ninjutsu and was an outlier. But Kazan had entered Hiruzen Sarutobi's field of vision long ago. Not every child could treat the Forest of Death as their own hunting ground. And tonight, Kazan's excellence was even beyond his expectations. He actually defeated the genius of this generation, Kakashi, although there were factors like Kakashi underestimating the enemy, being blinded by anger, and being careless. But Kazan's strength, comparable to the monstrous strength of the Senju clan, and his self-created taijutsu, all proved just how strong his talent was. Chapter 8: Multi-Shadow Clone Technique. Nighttime. There were few people left on the streets. Most of the villagers in Konoha had already fallen asleep. The entertainment options in this world were relatively limited. However, on a certain street in the southern part of the village, two brats were busy playing the role of bricklayers, repairing the road they had destroyed not long ago. What time is it now? I'm exhausted. Kazan looked up at the sky, feeling like it must be at least 11 o'clock. This repair work was much more troublesome than he had imagined. Perhaps that's just because destruction is far easier than creation. You should be happy about it. Fighting privately in the village without permission. According to the rules, we should be in the police force right now, undergoing interrogation by the Uchiha. Kakashi was focused on laying bricks on the other side. I'd rather be in the police force than do this job. The people of Konoha feared the Uchiha, but Kazan knew that they were just a bunch of overly emotional tsundeas. He had verified this himself. Once when he got into trouble and was caught by the Uchiha, he showed them immense goodwill. The Uchiha, who had previously looked as cold as ice, changed their attitude by 120 degrees. Over the years, the work of the Uchiha police force had not gone smoothly. To be a good law enforcer, one is bound to anger many villagers and make them fearful. Even before the nine-tailed incident had occurred, the villagers of Konoha still harbored dislike for the Uchiha in their hearts. Therefore, when Kazan understood their hardships and voiced the Uchiha's inner thoughts, he immediately gained the favor of those guys. Compared to Hiruzen Sarutobi, the Uchiha were much easier to deal with. Kakashi didn't understand. Just like the other villagers, he shared the same view of the Uchiha. A bunch of people who relied on the convenience of the police force, spent most of their time in the village, and only knew how to bully their own kind. That was the Uchiha. However, what Kakashi cared about wasn't the Uchiha. The relationship between the Uchiha and the village had nothing to do with him. What he cared about was Kazan's opinion of his father. The recent battle and conversation made Kakashi feel that Kazan seemed different from everyone else in the village. My father. Your dad is dead, I know. That's not what I meant. Kakashi turned his head in anger. Although most of his face was covered by his mask, Kazan could still feel that Kakashi was gritting his teeth. Then what do you mean? I want to know your opinion of my father. Kakashi took a deep breath. What kind of person do you think he is? A very cool guy. Compared to you, Sakumo Hatake Senpai was much cooler. I wasn't talking about his looks. I wasn't talking about his looks either. Kakashi was stunned upon hearing this. He saw sincerity in Kazan's eyes. He took a deep breath and said, in the world of ninja, completing the mission is the prerequisite for everything. Those who voluntarily abandon their missions are trash. But those who abandon their comrades for the sake of a mission are worse than trash. Kazan answered fluently. Even after so many years, he still remembered these classic lines vividly. Looking up, one could see Kakashi's pupils dilate to their maximum. These words had clearly shaken his heart. Seeing this, Kazan continued, I think your dad did the right thing. At the very least, I wouldn't let anyone else, including you, die in front of me. He had thought about it for a long time, and realized that the easiest way to obtain the multi-shadow clone technique was from Kakashi. This technique was recorded in the Scroll of Seals, and that was something Kazan couldn't get his hands on. It was impossible for him to sneak into the heavily guarded Hokage office, which was crawling with Anbu, to learn the multi-shadow clone technique. As for Kakashi, it was possible that the inheritance his father left him included this technique. Therefore, he wanted to build a good relationship with Kakashi and then obtain the technique through him. Kakashi, of course, didn't know how devious this guy was inside. His heart was currently trembling violently. This was a completely different perspective that he had heard over the years. Regarding his father, Kazan only had respect and recognition, not blame and curses. Those who abandon their comrades for the sake of a mission are worse than trash. His mind kept replaying this sentence. After a moment, Kakashi turned his head away and said with a bit of tsundere attitude, you should just take care of yourself, a guy who can't even perform ninjutsu. Why is this tone so soft? Kazan chuckled inwardly. Dealing with these brats was still quite easy. He stretched and said casually, I don't think we'll be able to finish this work tonight if it's just the two of us. Kakashi, do you have any way to speed up the progress? I have school tomorrow. No, and no one else will come to help us this late. Kakashi continued laying bricks, but after a while he suddenly thought of something. However, my father had a technique that might be able to help us. It can create physical clones. But I haven't learned it yet, so don't even think about slacking off. Multi-shadow clone technique. This was the technique Kakashi was talking about. However, he had heard from his old man that the technique carried certain risks, so he hadn't learned it himself. A physical clone, that must be the shadow clone. A physical clone technique, can you teach me? Kazan struck while the iron was hot, having no shame at all. He didn't care that he had just beaten the guy up, he just reached out and asked for it directly. He felt that his words earlier must have earned him quite a bit of favorability, so asking for a little reward shouldn't be too much. Aren't you not interested in ninjutsu? As expected, Kakashi didn't refuse immediately. In the current Konoha, there were far too few people who could understand and acknowledge his father. Nonsense, I just don't have a talent for ninjutsu, so I had to practice taijutsu. I'm actually very eager to learn. This Kakashi is crazy. Can the shadow clone be compared to other techniques? The Deserter King just said something about 200 times the effort and leveled up like crazy, mastering all 6 styles and haki in 2 years, and even coming up with some honest fist bone, blowing off one of Avalo Pizarro's arms, and was considered one of the candidates for a future admiral. Kazan wasn't greedy either. 5, 6, 7 or 8 times the effort would be enough. That's not asking too much, right? Kakashi's intuition told him that Kazan wasn't telling the truth. However, he didn't mind letting Kazan learn this technique, because his father's ninja way was being continued in Kazan. He believed that if his father were still alive, he would definitely agree too. Probably. Chapter 9, as long as you are strong enough, no problem is a problem. The technique you mentioned is inside here. In Kakashi's home. Before the road was fully repaired, Kazan goaded Kakashi into returning to his home. Although the latter was reluctant, he still brought Kazan back. Immediately, he rummaged through his father's belongings and took out a sealing scroll. It contained all the techniques Sakumo Hatake had mastered, as well as those he hadn't, during his lifetime. It was very comprehensive, encompassing various 5-element ninjutsu, the shadow clone technique, and the multi-shadow clone technique. These techniques were collected by Sakumo Hatake himself, obtained from the village, or were some he had created himself. According to regulations, after Sakumo Hatake died, Konoha would likely reclaim some important techniques, especially the forbidden multi-shadow clone technique. But perhaps out of guilt, Konoha did not raid Kakashi's home, leaving everything of Sakumo Hatake's to his son and descendants. Kazan's gaze locked directly onto the multi-shadow clone technique. As an A-rank ninjutsu, the multi-shadow clone technique was much simpler than other A-rank ninjutsu. This technique only had one seal, so simple that even Naruto could learn it after one glance. Kazan memorized all the information and mastered it in no time. Poof tilde. Poof tilde. Poof tilde. In the blink of an eye, more than a dozen shadow clones that looked exactly like Kazan appeared in the room. Kazan's talent for ninjutsu wasn't great, but his chakra reserves were massive. His body was extraordinary. He wasn't a glass cannon of the Naruto world. He was using the template of the marine hero Garp. The vitality of his body cells was many times higher than that of the ninjas in this world. So many, Kakashi was also dumbfounded. The multi-shadow clone technique was not without its flaws. One of them was the need to distribute chakra evenly among the clones. Excessive consumption of chakra could lead to the user's death. Even for his father, creating 7 shadow clones at once was the limit, yet Kazan conjured 10 with a wave of his hand, and he looked quite relaxed doing it. Not bad, let's go, Kakashi. Kazan turned around and left with his shadow clones, looking exactly like those guys who leave without a trace after getting what they want. Kakashi hadn't fully recovered yet, following him blankly, returning to the street to fix the road with Kazan again. Such massive chakra reserves, yet no corresponding ninjutsu talent, it's truly ironic. However, even without ninjutsu talent, this guy Kazan's taijutsu is astonishing enough. Kakashi touched his neck, thinking of Kazan's undersea drop move, and he could still feel the pain in his body. Yet such a genius still hadn't graduated from the Ninja Academy. Hey Kazan, why are you still staying at the Ninja Academy? He asked the question that had been puzzling him. Kazan didn't answer immediately, instead asking in return, are you happy after leaving the Ninja Academy, Kakashi? Happy. After his father's suicide, Kakashi hadn't known what happiness felt like for a long time. In fact, even after graduation, he frequently had conflicts with others in his team. Being too ruthless and prioritizing missions and efficiency above all else made everyone in the team unable to stand him, considering him overly cold. Looking at you, it seems you haven't been doing well. Kazan knew what was going on just by looking at his expression. In the original story, Kakashi only returned to normal after Team 7 debuted. Having experienced his father's suicide, the sacrifice of his friends, and killing a teammate with his own hands, Kakashi once had self-destructive tendencies. Is your reason for being a ninja just to be happy? What else would it be? Kazan said it righteously and easily. Life is only 100 years long, and the short-lived career of a ninja might only last a few decades. Why live so tiredly every day? As he spoke, he also tried to persuade Kakashi. After all, he had just dropped gold coins for him. What is your dream, Kakashi? Dream? He hadn't thought about it. Initially, his dream was to become an excellent ninja like his father. Now he didn't know anymore. Therefore Kazan was indeed right, he was truly lost. Can't answer. Then why not be like me? First strive to become stronger, and then become the freest person in the entire ninja world. If you can reach that point, then from now on, anything you don't want to happen will never happen again. Never happen again. Kakashi was stunned again. The so-called freedom is fake. Not wanting tragedies to happen to him is what's real, right? Only now did Kakashi realize that this guy Kazan, like him, was all alone, and the other party might only know what his parents looked like from memorial photos. This guy was even more pitiful than him, yet far stronger than him. Compared to just losing to Kazan, Kakashi felt that this was where he had truly suffered a crushing defeat. Of course, young Kakashi would never admit it aloud. Still saying I'm bragging, I think you're the one who's best at bragging, despite being a guy with no ninjutsu talent. Who decreed that one cannot become the strongest without ninjutsu talent? In the end, it's just that no one in history has done it yet, because no one has headed in this direction, there is no path. Are you also one of those guys who wishfully think that just because there's no path, it must be impassable, Kakashi? Kakashi didn't answer upon hearing this. Reason told him that this was impossible, but Kazan's eyes were very, very bright. His father had told him while he was alive that if he didn't work hard enough, he would definitely be left behind by this guy Kazan. Kakashi didn't think so. A guy who only knew taijutsu, who didn't even have a slim chance of becoming a ninja, how could he possibly walk ahead of him? But after interacting with Kazan tonight, he started to believe. He still didn't think Kazan would surpass him, even though he had just been beaten up by Kazan, but that was under the premise that he wasn't calm enough and had underestimated the enemy. If they fought again, he might not necessarily be Kazan's opponent. It's just that with Kazan's reckless personality, he might really be able to do something earth-shattering. Stop bragging over there, you're not even a student, let alone a genin. Hurry up and finish fixing the road, I'm sleepy. That's true, but then again, why did you only create one clone? Kakashi indicated that this question was a bit hard to answer. Was he supposed to say that his chakra was pitifully low? He was a genius who graduated from the Ninja Academy at age 5 and created Konoha history, all right. Saying such a thing out loud would be very embarrassing. Chapter 10, Making a Name in Konoha. The next day, Kazan was late. He didn't know how long it had taken him to fix the road last night, but it certainly wasn't early. By the time he finished, there was no one left on the street but him and Kakashi, not even a ghost in sight. As a healthy person who needed 8 hours of sleep every day, Kazan simply overslept today. When he opened his eyes, the system, which had been silent all along, finally stirred. Hidden achievement completed, making a name in Konoha 1. Reward, Monkey D. Garp Template Fusion increased by 10%. Kazan was stunned at first, then realized what was happening. He hadn't expected this system to be so unconventional. Then what was the point of him keeping a low profile for so long? He had gone to beat up Kakashi right after he graduated. But it's not too late now, at least I know how this system works. The 10% increase in the template felt quite significant. After getting up, Kazan felt like he had endless energy coursing through his body. If there had been other factors involved in Kazan taking down Kakashi last night, it would be far too easy now. Furthermore, he had a vague feeling that he could now practice Rokushiki. His body finally met the requirements. Truly a double blessing. Happy, Kazan immediately created 6 shadow clones to practice Rokushiki for him. After doing all this, he finally left his house and headed toward the Ninja Academy. On the way, the villagers of Konoha were gossiping like crazy. Did you hear what? Last night, that genius from the village, Kakashi Hatake, was knocked unconscious by that little devil Kazan. What Kazan, that good-for-nothing brat? He knocked Kakashi unconscious. It's him. I heard he created a move called Universal Big Bang and smashed Kakashi into the street like a chick, knocking him out. Hiss, he's that strong. The man was shocked, and then the two separated, working together to spread the rumors everywhere. Did you hear what? Last night, Kakashi was insta-killed by that brat Kazan with a Universal Big Bang. Universal Big Bang? Yes, it said that Kakashi was beaten so badly he almost went to see his father on the spot. How terrifying. What? Kakashi was punched into the hospital by Kazan and hasn't woken up yet. Pass it on, the genius Kakashi Hatake had the sh*t beaten out of him by Kazan. Big news, the genius Kakashi was blown away by a punch from Kazan, and yellow and white stuff is all over the ground. Oh my god, the troublemaker Kazan isn't pretending anymore. It was ridiculous. Even with 2 lifetimes of experience, Kazan couldn't help but twitch his mouth when he heard these rumors from passers-by. So it turned out that these people were responsible for him completing the Making a Name in Konoha achievement. Kazan quickened his pace. These rumors were getting more and more absurd. Now they were even saying Kakashi had been beaten so badly he lost control of his bowels. He couldn't even guess how far this would go. They were crazy. A while later, the Ninja Academy class had already started. Kazan was in a rush, so he leaped into the air and jumped directly to the classroom window instead of using the front door. In an instant, the Chunin teacher's lecturing voice stopped, and everyone in the class turned their eyes toward him in unison. "He's here, it's Kazan. I heard he beat Kakashi into the hospital last night." "What hospital?" "The version I heard is that Kakashi was beaten so hard he *T himself on the spot." "Huh, isn't it that he lost control of both bladder and bowels?" Hiss. Gasps of shock echoed throughout the classroom. Who would have thought the genius Kakashi, who enrolled at 5, graduated early the same year, and was already a Chunin, would be defeated by Kazan, who only knew how to throw punches? "How is that possible? It must be a rumor. That guy Kakashi must be defeated by me." Obito didn't believe the rumor. Asuma didn't believe it either. If Kazan were really that strong, what would he do? "Kazan?" The Chunin teacher was equally surprised, but seeing Kazan walking to his seat as if nothing had happened, he instantly forgot his shock, feeling that his sacred duty as a teacher had been desecrated. He shouted angrily, "Why didn't you use the front door?" "Because I was late and in a rush." "Then why were you late?" "I overslept." This brat was certainly honest. "Go stand in the doorway and serve your punishment. You are not allowed to enter the classroom for this entire lesson. And another thing, no more entering through the window in the future. You will walk in through the door properly." "O tilde," Kazan replied with an O, and walked out to the corridor to stand against the wall. After some commotion in the classroom, it quickly returned to calm under the teacher's scolding, and the lesson resumed. As for Kazan, he began to think about how he could pull off something big. He keenly noticed the Arabic numeral at the end of the achievement, making a name in Konoha 1. This meant there was a follow-up to this achievement. He figured that as long as his reputation grew further, he could continue to unlock proficiency in the Garp template and increase his combat power. "But now that I've defeated Kakashi, how should I make a name for myself next?" Kazan thought for a while. He realized that unless he left the village and did something earth-shattering, his only option now was to take on the Uchiha or the Hyuga, the two largest ninja clans in Konoha. There has always been talk of the 3 great Dojutsu in the ninja world. One is the legendary Rinnegan of the 6 Paths Sage, known as the Eye of the Sage. It exists only in legends. In their entire ninja world, only a few people know that it truly existed. The remaining 2 are the Sharingan of the Uchiha clan and the Byakugan of the Hyuga clan. This has caused both clans, most of the time, to avoid intermarriage with outsiders to ensure the purity of their descendants' bloodline. Coupled with their powerful bloodline limits, both clans hold a transcendent status within Konoha. Let's give it a try, maybe it will actually work. The Third Shinobi World War is imminent, and he must increase his strength as much as possible. His original plan was to survive the Third Shinobi World War. That slaughterhouse even claimed the life of the fierce Third Reikage, which shows just how cruel it was. Now he intended to make a big name for himself. Since there was an achievement like making a name in Konoha, there must surely be an achievement like making a name in the ninja world. The more brutal his battle record, the faster his strength would increase. The stronger he became, the higher his chance of surviving the Third Shinobi World War. Strength is the foundation of everything. Meanwhile, inside the Hokage office, Hiruzen Sarutobi was listening to a jonin of the village complaining. The subject of the complaint was Kakashi, who had broken out in conflict with other members of his team. Often, he wouldn't even listen to his jonin squad leader. He was extremely self-willed, which had already seriously affected their team's mission execution. "I understand, you may go first. I will arrange things for Kakashi." Hiruzen Sarutobi sighed silently. Kakashi's talent was very high. If he could grow up healthily, he would surely become the second White Fang of the Leaf, who would shake the ninja world in the future. But right now, this was already the 4th jonin squad leader to complain about Kakashi. Kakashi's problem must be handled well. Konoha could not afford to lose such a genius. The only person who came to his mind was Minato Namikaze. That genius who was like sunshine, with a smile that always seemed to embrace everything, might be able to bring Kakashi back to the right path, and dispel the shadows in his heart. "Have Minato come to see me?" "Yes," the Ambu in the shadows responded, then quickly disappeared from the office. Chapter 11, Bonds. Hiruzen Sarutobi dismissed the team-leading Jonin, who had come to complain about Kakashi, then took out the specific information on the students about to graduate from the Ninja Academy. It clearly recorded the abilities and characteristics of the students, documented in minute detail. Of course, there were exceptions, such as Kazan. No one had expected that this dead last, who had been mocked for years, played only with taijutsu instead of ninjutsu, and barely passed his classes, was actually a genius. Of course, these people did not include Hiruzen Sarutobi. He was aware of Kazan hunting in the Forest of Death. Should I put Kazan on the same team as Kakashi? Last night, he had observed them for a long time using the telescope technique, and discovered that Kakashi got along unexpectedly well with Kazan, and had even taught Kazan a forbidden jutsu. Between the two little geniuses, a bond of getting to know each other through fighting was quietly sprouting. Better to keep them separate. Minato isn't good at leading ninjas who specialize in taijutsu. Letting Minato Namikaze teach Kazan was not a very good choice. The team assignments for Ninja Academy graduates were always carefully selected by the Hokage. Using his vision and experience, he would form specialized squads. Kakashi and Kazan were the key objects of his attention among this year's graduates, especially Kakashi. He had to find a way to make him build a stronger connection with the village, rather than becoming a heartless machine that only knew how to execute missions. Immediately after, he worried about the strife in the ninja world. For nearly a year, there had been constant friction between the major ninja villages. Located in the center of the continent and occupying the most prosperous land, the Land of Fire and Konoha were the primary targets. If a full-scale war broke out, could he lead the village to victory as his teacher had? The legendary ninja of the past no longer had that confidence now. On the other side, Ninja Academy. After class ended, Kazan returned to the classroom. Everyone immediately surrounded him. They couldn't believe that Kakashi had actually been knocked down by Kazan's fists. This was unbelievable, even more outrageous than Uchiha Obito getting first place on an exam. "Kazan, are the rumors in the village true? Did you really defeat Kakashi?" Asuma was very nervous. If the rumors were true, then he would be under too much pressure. Kazan looked at these brats, who were filled with such a rich variety of emotions, apprehension, anticipation, and nervousness, and nodded his head. "It's actually true." The classroom immediately erupted in an uproar. However, they still found it hard to believe. Could one really defeat Kakashi just with a pair of fists? This was simply too dreamlike. Only Might Guy vaguely sensed in his heart that Kazan was very strong, because his father had always told him to take Kazan as his goal. Out of trust in his father, he had always worked very hard, but he hadn't thought that Kazan was already above Kakashi. Only Kurenai noticed something different from the others. "Why were you late today?" "Huh, didn't I just say I overslept?" "Since you started school at 5, Kazan, you have never overslept." Kurenai Yuhai remembered clearly, because she had been paying attention. "Oh it's because I was dragged off by the old man third to repair the damaged streets last night." Together with Kakashi. The person asking was not Kurenai, but Rin Nohara. "Yeah. Then, how is Kakashi? Did the mission go smoothly?" "Same as always, he's in good shape." "Is that so?" Rin Nohara felt relieved. She was born in Konoha and had never left the village to this day. Like the others, she yearned for the world outside Konoha, but she didn't know about the dangers outside the village like the hot-blooded boys like Obito did. Hearing that Kakashi was fine, she was relieved. As for rumors about Kakashi getting beaten until he sh*t himself, Rin Nohara didn't believe it. Her idol wouldn't let such a thing happen. "Hey Kazan, let's have a showdown." Obito didn't know the content of their conversation, but he saw Rin Nohara chatting happily with Kazan. Obito instinctively felt that this was because Kazan had defeated Kakashi. If that was the case, then all he had to do was defeat Kazan, right? Kazan glanced at Obito, unable to associate the person in front of him with the boss he would become in the future. Next time. No need to wait for next time, let's do it now. As he said this, Obito already attacked, vowing to prove that his talent was no weaker than anyone else's. Bang! Kazan threw his right fist, landing a solid blow on Obito's cheek. In an instant, people only felt a dark shadow flash before their eyes, and then they saw Obito being punched flying out the window. Obito, Rin Nohara cried out in shock and hurried out of the classroom to check. So, what exactly does this woman mean? Kazan muttered to himself in his heart. The person Rin Nohara liked from beginning to end was Kakashi. Even at the moment of her death, the official record stated, Rin Nohara died at the hands of the one she loved. But her concern for Obito exceeded the boundaries of friendship. Forget it, this has nothing to do with me. Kazan retracted his fist. It's noon. After eating, Kazan continued hitting his wooden stake. As a result, boom! Not long after, a wooden stake was blasted apart by him. A 10% increase is enough to make this kind of wooden stake unable to withstand it. Kazan looked at his fist. Garp's training method was very simple and brutal. Just keep throwing full-power punches continuously. From starting with wooden stakes to later using non-seaworthy warships, and then to using mountains as sandbags to hit. Through repeated pounding, he forged an unparalleled iron fist. Of course, this was because of his extraordinary talent. How could an ordinary person reach world-class combat power just by hitting wooden stakes? The problem is Konoha doesn't have things like warships for me to hit. Kazan thought for a while. I'd better go to the Forest of Death. Thinking of this, Kazan created another shadow clone. I'll leave this afternoon's class to you. Don't give me such a troublesome task. A shadow clone was, to a certain extent, himself. Not only could it speak, but it also possessed his own thoughts. Using a shadow clone to train my body won't bring me any improvement. It will only make me feel tired. Stop complaining, I'm off. Kazan gave a couple of reminders, leaped up, and left the Ninja Academy, leaving only a shadow clone to deal with the classes. Not long after, in the Forest of Death, the sound of Kazan's bang, bang, bang punches echoed. One punch after another, each one at full power, hitting the giant trees in the Forest of Death. Hakami smelled his master's scent and rushed over, only to see Kazan continuously hitting a tree. Although he didn't know what he was doing, he didn't disturb him, instead acting as a guard. Boom tilde. As a giant tree fell, a sweating Kazan finally stopped his punching motion. Then, a wave of fatigue washed over him like a tide. It wasn't just tiredness, it was because the shadow clone he had sent out in the morning to practice 6 styles had exhausted its chakra. When a large amount of training memories flooded into his mind all at once, it made Kazan so tired that he collapsed on the spot and fell asleep. Awu Hakami was startled, licked him a few times, and upon discovering that he was just asleep, he returned to a state of alert. Chapter 12, The Geniuses of Konoha Are All Crazy. Pop. As the bubble blown from his nose popped, Kazan opened his eyes. The aftereffects are truly intense. It's no wonder that even though the second Hokage created the multi-shadow clone technique so long ago, only Naruto dares to use shadow clones to assist in his training. Come to think of it, Naruto has never been the smartest one in Konoha. Anything he can think of, others can naturally think of as well. Using shadow clones to assist in training requires conditions that are too harsh. Like that weakling Kakashi, he can only create a few shadow clones, and furthermore, practicing ninjutsu consumes chakra rapidly. However, who told this guy to perform 88 hand seals just to use a water release? But Kazan, he is fine. His will and body are strong enough that the side effects of the shadow clones cannot affect him. He can recover his energy just by sleeping for a while. His powerful physique brings him a massive amount of chakra. Let's try it. Still can't do it. He hasn't mastered any of the 6 styles techniques. But it will be soon. After all, this is Garp's template. Every member of Garp's family is a genius. Whether it's him, his son, or his grandson, they all possess top-tier talent in the world of pirates. It's already this late. It seems I'll have to trouble Uchiha Jing tomorrow. Kazan looked at the sky. The sun was about to set. He had originally planned to start today by punching the Hyuga cataracts and kicking the Uchiha red-eye disease, establishing his own invincible reputation in Konoha. For now, he'd better fill his stomach first. Let's go, Hakame, time to hunt. Today we're going to eat your kind. Awuo. And so, another day passed. The next day, Kazan dismissed the multi-shadow clone technique in advance, and after resting sufficiently, he waited on the path that Uchiha Jing had to take to get home. The latter didn't keep him waiting long. His figure soon appeared at the other end of the road. The nine-tailed rampage incident had not yet broken out, and the Uchiha clan had not yet been relocated to the outskirts of the village. Their clan grounds were still located in the central area of Konoha. Too slow. Kazan walked up to Uchiha Jing, swallowed the last rice ball in one bite, and locked his gaze on him. Kazan, what business do you have waiting for me here? Of course, it's to have a fight with you, you naturally evil Uchiha brat. What did you say? Uchiha Jing's eyes narrowed instantly. The proud Uchiha do not allow anyone to insult their surname. I said you Uchiha are witless, and I laugh at the Hyuga clan for lacking wisdom. The Uchiha and the Hyuga are all idiots. You're courting death. Uchiha Jing threw away his school bag and rushed forward. No other reason was needed. These words from Kazan were enough to make him go all out. Bang! Kazan bumped his fists together in front of his chest and said, "Not bad, you're much more straightforward than that guy Kakashi." Facing the rapidly approaching Uchiha Jing, Kazan clenched his fist and smashed it forward. Fist bone impact. He threw a punch, tearing through the air, unstoppable. Facing this aggressive punch, Uchiha Jing's expression changed drastically. It was a punch that he knew without even testing it that he couldn't take head-on. He hurriedly dodged to the side. Kazan's punch missed, but the wind it generated caused Uchiha Jing's hair to fly wildly and strung his cheeks. He thought to himself that it was fortunate he had dodged quickly enough, but before he could recover, one of Kazan's legs had already swept over like an army-crushing blow. With a bang, Uchiha Jing's body flew backward rapidly, flying more than 10 meters before landing on his butt and rolling a few times on the ground before stopping. What kind of technique is this? A simple punch. Nonsense, how could a human fist be this powerful? Uchiha Jing didn't believe it. This was particularly similar to the monstrous strength fist of the Senju clan recorded in his clan's archives. He guessed that what Kazan used was the Senju clan's monstrous strength fist. Regardless of how Kazan obtained the Senju clan's monstrous strength fist, the bottom line was that he couldn't get hit. I haven't awakened the Sharingan yet. I can't engage him in close-quarters combat. Uchiha Jing analyzed quickly, then performed hand seals on the spot. Kazan recognized those seals. It was the embarrassing Great Fireball technique, which, like Amaterasu, had never actually burned anyone to death. Too slow. Soru tilde. In just 2 days, Kazan had initially mastered Soru, one of the Rokushiki. But even with the just mastered Soru, his speed was more than twice as fast as the original Kazan's full speed. By continuously kicking the ground, he created a sufficiently strong explosive reaction force within 0.36 seconds, achieving super high-speed movement. Before one could even blink, Kazan had arrived in front of Uchiha Jing. So fast. His shock was beyond measure. It was too late to defend. Bang! Kazan's iron fist smashed Uchiha Jing to pieces, turning him into a log. Body replacement technique. Fire release, Great Fireball technique. Almost simultaneously, a sensation of intense heat came from behind, and a fireball rapidly approached, from far to near, from fast to slow. HMPH. Kazan let out a cold snort. He moved, dodging like a leopard, jumping sideways to step on a utility pole by the road, and after gaining leverage, he soared into the air rapidly. Fist bone. Impact. Kazan jumped above Uchiha Jing, his fist smashing down like a meteorite. Oh no, Uchiha Jing was still in the state of breathing fire and couldn't dodge. He could only channel his chakra to defend against the punch descending from the sky. With a boom, Uchiha Jing seemed to be suppressed by gravity, smashing through the roof and falling rapidly. After only a few exchanges, he followed in Kakashi's footsteps, rolled his eyes back, and collapsed into the crater blasted out by Kazan's punch. Oh heavens, that little bastard Kazan is starting to tear down the house again. What happened? He's fighting with someone from the Uchiha clan, right on the street. Nani, that hateful brat is fighting on the street again. Who is he fighting this time? Someone from the Uchiha clan. What? Hurry and go see if he won. When the villagers heard that Kazan had gone to trouble the Uchiha, they suddenly weren't angry anymore. They only cared about whether he had won. A group of people rushed over like sprinting champions, and then they saw. Kazan stood alone by the edge of the pit, staring at the unconscious Uchiha in the center of the crater. Clearly he had won. This little demon king has finally done something good. Hearing the commotion, Kazan turned and said to the villagers, "You guys bear witness for me, he was the one who started it. We will all bear witness for you. Well done, Kazan, you've finally done a good deed. Nice fight, let's see if the Uchiha dare to be so arrogant in the future." The villagers shouted loudly, their long-held resentment toward the Uchiha even making them forget the destruction Kazan had caused. The news quickly reached the Hokage's ears. Hiruzen Sarutobi, who was currently troubled by the border conflicts, was numb when he heard that Kazan, who had only been well-behaved for one day, had gone off to fight the Uchiha again. He clutched his forehead in extreme headache and ordered, "Go bring him back quickly, don't let him fall into the hands of the Uchiha." Hiruzen Sarutobi really couldn't understand why the geniuses of his village had so many issues. Orochimaru doesn't do his proper work, suddenly running off to conduct some research, and now he's mixed up with Danzo. Jiraiya, as one of the Sannin, has surpassed his master, but also doesn't do his proper work, running to the bathhouse every day to peep. Tsunade is even more outrageous. The dignified princess of Konoha is better known for her big fat sheep, attribute than her name as one of the Sannin, almost losing every bet she makes. If the Senju clan didn't have deep pockets, she would have long ago gambled everything away and been sold to a brothel. And now she's become the runaway princess of Konoha. And now it's this generation's turn. Kakashi is a problem child who has been complained about by 4 Jonin teachers in a row. Kazan is no better, fighting and causing trouble everywhere every single day. Can't you all be a little more mature and learn from Minato? Of the geniuses in Konoha, 9 out of 10 are crazy. Chapter 13, Old Fox. You smashed a 5-meter diameter crater in the street and damaged a 60 square meter house. This is the fine work you've done, Kazan. In the Hokage office, Hiruzen Sarutobi roared at Kazan. His demeanor was as hysterical as Sengoku dealing with Garp. Kazan didn't say a word upon hearing this, acting unusually docile. "Say something." "Fine, I'll say it." Kazan scratched his hair, but his words were enough to make someone spit blood. I didn't expect his body to be so sturdy, enough to smash such a big hole. Cough, 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 tilde, 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 asterisk. Hiruzen Sarutobi nearly choked to death on the smoke in his mouth. "I didn't tell you to say that. Why on earth did you go and fight Uchiha Jing for no reason?" Looking at the block-headed Kazan, Hiruzen Sarutobi couldn't help but roar again. The birds standing near the Hokage building all flapped their wings and flew far away in response to his roar. I wanted to see just how strong I am now, but everyone else at the academy isn't strong enough, nor are they tough enough. Kakashi doesn't have time, and the Uchiha clan was the best opponent I could think of. Forget to like, comment, subscribers, and share to Infinite Novel Audio. So you know the Uchiha clan is not to be trifled with. Do you have any idea that if I hadn't acted fast enough, you would have already been taken away by the Uchiha people? Do I need to spell out the consequences of being taken by them for you word by word? Hiruzen Sarutobi leaned his hands on the desk and said irritably, "Tell me, why have you been specifically seeking out people to fight lately?" Kazan didn't answer directly upon hearing this, but instead asked, "Old Man Third, has the ninja world been unstable lately?" "Who told you that?" "No one told me, but I can see it. The ninjas returning to the village all have very strange expressions. Is it already that obvious? Hiruzen Sarutobi reined in his anger and sighed inwardly. The third Kazekage of the hidden sand village had been missing for a long time, long enough for the Sunagakure leadership to conclude that the third Kazekage was dead. The leader of the hidden sand village was being temporarily replaced by the legendary puppet master, Elder Chiyo. Although Elder Chiyo was a woman, her personality was exceptionally fiery. At present, she had already set her sights on the other 4 major ninja villages. Aside from the 4 major ninja villages, those smaller villages did not possess the capability to quietly assassinate the third Kazekage, who was known as the strongest Kazekage. This probing by the hidden sand village touched the nerves of other ninja villages, and as frictions escalated, border battles became increasingly frequent. At this moment, on the borders of various countries, hatred and fury were rapidly accumulating, and no one could guarantee when the war would fully erupt. Hiruzen Sarutobi would not tell Kazan about these things, but he thought even more highly of him in his heart. He just appeared to have a careless personality, but in reality, he was very sharp-minded. You don't need to worry about these things. What you need to do now is promise me that you won't go around picking fights anymore, especially with those ninja clans in the village. Can you do that? I'll try. I don't want try. If there is a next time, I won't be able to protect you. Now, get out of here and repair the place you destroyed. I allow you to use that technique Kakashi taught you. This old man really knew. Kazan thought to himself that these people in power in Konoha were not easy to deal with, but he still put on a very surprised expression. Old man third you, as you knew. HMPH, don't underestimate the Hokage, brat. Hiruzen Sarutobi smiled smugly. Every move in the village was within his surveillance range. In addition to the most elite unit, the Anbu, he also had the telescope technique. Anyone he targeted would have their files appear on his desk. Unless the target's abilities exceeded the Anbu. For example, Orochimaru and Danzo, as well as the Hyuga clan and the Uchiha clan, could only be monitored from a distance. They could not be infiltrated. This old fox is really hard to deal with. After leaving the Hokage building, a look of wisdom appeared on Kazan's careless face. The old guy was quite skilled at managing people. He had grown up, but only in the last few days had he had close contact with Hiruzen Sarutobi. But in those 2 interactions, Hiruzen Sarutobi's roaring and his distress, as if he were helpless like a grandfather dealing with a grandson, were effective. Silently and soundlessly, he had bridged the distance with him and eliminated that sense of separation. No wonder Itachi and Shisui were later fooled by him into completely opposing their own clan. Such a person is too terrifying. However, since he put on such a performance in front of me, it at least proves that I have entered the Hokage's field of vision. From now on, I am also someone with connections. Kazan was even more looking forward to the upcoming graduation and team assignments. Would it be Minato? Although the yellow flash was always a step slow at critical moments, filling his own life with regrets. The 4th didn't appear much, and every time he did, he wore a sunny smile, making people overlook everything else. But in the 4th's life, he was always accompanied by the regret of being a step slow. He was known as the fastest in the ninja world. Yet he failed to save his student Obito in time. During the Nine-Tailed incident, out of responsibility, he prioritized dealing with the Nine-Tailed crisis, but objectively, he was a step late again. This step-slow trait followed Minato Namikaze throughout his life, perfectly demonstrating the fickleness of fate. But regardless, in the Third Shinobi World War, Minato was one of the biggest pillars of support. "Sai, why think so much? Time to fix the road, fix the road." Kazan once again acted as a cement worker. The person supervising was still an Anbu of Konoha, which made the police force not far away, that is, the ninjas of the Uchiha clan, gnash their teeth. They had already complained to their clan leader, who also went to the Hokage building to protest, but was blocked by Hiruzen Sarutobi. The people of the Uchiha clan didn't understand why the 3rd Hokage was so determined to protect this brat. Could a commoner really be above the Uchiha? They didn't understand, they only knew that Kazan had brought shame upon their Uchiha clan. In broad daylight, he had beaten their clan's genius into the hospital, and he still hadn't woken up yet. "Kazan, what are you doing here?" Kurenai Yuhai's voice rang out. Kazan looked up and saw Kurenai Yuhai and her companions. It looked like they were out shopping. "Nothing much. I saw the road was broken, and so as not to affect everyone in the village, I couldn't help but start working on it." "What do you mean you couldn't help but start working on it? Why don't you say who destroyed the road, and this house too?" Anko Mitarashi mercilessly exposed his lie. Konoha wasn't small, but it wasn't big either. By the time Kazan had finished receiving his baptism of roaring from Hiruzen Sarutobi, the news that he had beaten Uchiha Jing into the hospital had spread throughout the entire village. If Konoha had an opinion poll, the Uchiha would definitely be the most disliked ninja clan in the whole village, no doubt about it. Therefore, many people used this incident to badmouth the Uchiha. Chapter 14, Kurenai Yuhai is a pervert. But having said that, when did you learn this technique? Anko Mitarashi looked at the shadow clone of Kazan on the scene, her expression filled with surprise. If she remembered correctly, this kind of solid clone should be the multi-shadow clone technique created by Nidaime, 2nd, Sama, an A-rank ninjutsu. Kazan practiced boxing every day, and she had never heard of him training in ninjutsu, so how did he suddenly master such a high-level technique? Want to know? I don't want to know. Anko wasn't falling for it, she knew better than that. If she said she wanted to know, Kazan definitely wouldn't tell her. She was smart, but not smart enough, because Kazan had one more trick. "Then I won't tell you. So regardless of whether I want to know or not, you're not going to tell me, right?" Anko gritted her teeth, glaring fiercely at Kazan. Kurenai Yuhai covered her mouth and chuckled, looking incredibly cute and beautiful. Even as a child, Kurenai Yuhai was like the beauty of the class. She was, after all, a famous older sister figure in the Hokage series. She walked over to Kazan and asked in a low voice, "Why are you fighting people again?" Kazan pointed to the side and said, "I'm not the main body, that one is." "Liars, you are the main body, don't try to fool me." She narrowed her eyes, smiling happily, not falling for it at all. Anko couldn't tell the difference, but Kazan's expression proved Kurenai Yuhai's judgment was correct. "Kurenai, how did you know that guy was the main body?" "Because this Kazan is the cleanest one. Apart from training, Kazan doesn't have much interest in most things." As she spoke, she turned her head and said to Kazan, "Am I right?" "You really are a pervert, Kurenai. Caring to this extent, it's not just simple liking anymore, is it?" Anko felt a small pang of pity for Asuma for a second. "You still haven't told me why you fought Uchiha Jing. It was the same when you fought Kakashi before." "It's nothing, I just happened to see them, and my hands were itching." Kazan made up a random excuse. Knowing he didn't want to talk about it, Kurenai didn't press him. Instead, she asked, "So, the one at the Ninja Academy today was also a shadow clone of Kazan, right?" Kazan, you guy actually used a shadow clone to attend class." Before Kazan could say anything, Anko was shocked again. "Can you stop being so jumpy?" Kazan rolled his eyes at her, then looked back at Kurenai Yuhai. How had he not noticed before? This little girl's observation skills were too sharp. He didn't ask how she figured it out, just said, "Remember to keep it a secret for me. The Ninja Academy classes don't mean much to me. I need to spend my time elsewhere." "No problem, Anko won't tell anyone either, right?" She still had that happy smile, but the way she looked made Anko unable to refuse. "I got it, I'll keep his secret." For the first time, Anko felt her best friend was a bit scary. Kurenai then returned to her normal smile. "Let me help you too, Kazan. Anko can go back first." First, help Kazan finish the punishment from Hokage-sama, and then naturally go out for dinner with Kazan. It was decided. Kurenai made her own little plans. Even though Anko was standing right there with them, a sudden sense of loneliness washed over her. What is this disgusting feeling? She couldn't figure it out, so she decided to leave first. In the end, Kurenai did get her wish and had dinner with Kazan, but the location was not what she expected. Is this where Kazan usually eats? Isn't this taste a bit too heavy? If she remembered correctly, this was the village's forbidden area, the Forest of Death. Yeah, as a thank you for helping me with the work, I'll make an exception today and take you inside to hunt. Let's go, Kazan grinned. A tilde. Kurenai let out a cute exclamation, and in an instant, she felt herself being lifted. It wasn't the romantic Princess Carrie from novels. She was tucked under Kazan's arm by his waist, and the next second, she was flying as he leapt into the forest of death. The first thing she saw upon entering the forest was a huge tiger, and Kurenai's legs went weak from fear on the spot. But the scene that followed made her feel even more incredulous. She saw that fierce tiger being petted by Kazan like a pet, and it even had an expression of enjoyment. Immediately after, she was thrown onto the tiger's back, riding the hakami that Kazan mentioned, heading deep into the forest of death. Before long, boom! A loud noise echoed through the forest, and a cow of absurd size collapsed with a thud. You're lucky today, it's usually not easy to find a cow. Kazan didn't mention why the cows were getting fewer, he just said it was good luck. A moment later, Kurenai took the meat Kazan handed to her. Her head was still buzzing. What happened today had quite an impact on her worldview. While they were laughing and joking, Kazan actually had to hunt in the forest of death every day just to get enough to eat. It must be very hard, right? She had her mom and dad to protect her, but Kazan only had himself. And Kazan had such a big appetite. It must be very hard, right? It was quite sudden. Kazan looked into Kurenai's eyes and saw a hint of heartache. The emotional dramas of these two-dimensional kids are just too rich. He shook his head and said, "It's fine. At first I only hunted in the outer areas. The forest of death isn't as dangerous as you think." Kurenai didn't speak, just lowered her head to eat the meat. Kazan is truly amazing. People like them still relied on their parents to survive even now, while Kazan started being independent from a very young age. Especially that Asuma Sarutobi, he was the worst, relying on his father being the Hokage, he often badmouthed Kazan. Asuma hadn't actually done anything, but Kurenai just didn't like him. After a while, Kazan patted his bulging stomach. "Full now, right? I'll take you home." Okay. Kurenai's home was a distance away from the forest of death. Her father was a master of genjutsu in Konoha. Setting aside the innate genjutsu of the Uchiha clan's Sharingan, Shinku Yuhai was considered the strongest genjutsu ninja in Konoha. At the same time, he was also an instructor for Konoha's Chunin and Genin, holding a high status in the village. Therefore, the place where Kurenai lived was the most prosperous area of Konoha. "Then I'll head back now, see you tomorrow." "Yeah. You can meet my shadow clone tomorrow." After sending her home, Kazan left immediately. Back home, he opened the system and saw that the expected item hadn't appeared. Apparently, one Uchiha Jing was not enough to complete the second achievement. Come to think of it, although Uchiha Jing was an Uchiha, Kakashi was the most outstanding genius of this generation, and there was a clear gap between the two. But that guy Kakashi graduated at 5 years old. The record he created will likely never be broken in the future. I'll go beat up Hyuga Asuka tomorrow and see if I can complete the achievement. As for Hiruzen Sarutobi's words, he treated them like a fart on the spot. "If you want to win me over, how can you do it without putting in some effort? I am not Naruto." Chapter 15, Punching Hyuga. The next day, Kazan got up and continued to run to the forest of death to practice his punching, specifically seeking out thick trees to strike repeatedly, training his pair of iron fists. His shadow clone, on the other hand, was practicing Rokushiki. It was fortunate that the forest of death was far from the village, otherwise the commotion here wouldn't have been kept hidden. Hiruzen Sarutobi learned immediately that he had run off to the forest of death to practice his punching. Kazan's talent for taijutsu, or rather his physical constitution, exceeded his expectations. No matter how knowledgeable he was, he had never seen a child under the age of 10 polish their body to such a degree. Additionally, the techniques Kazan's shadow clone was practicing were very unique. At the very least, he had never seen them before, clearly self-created taijutsu. It showed just how high Kazan's talent was in the path of taijutsu. During this period, Hiruzen Sarutobi had thought for a long time, and felt that having Tsunade mentor Kazan would be a good choice. It was just a pity that since the Second Shinobi World War, having witnessed the deaths of her lover and brother in succession, it had caused Tsunade severe psychological trauma. As a ninja, and even the most outstanding medical ninja in the entire ninja world, Tsunade had developed hemophobia. Nowadays, Tsunade had already left Konoha, traveling across the ninja world with Shizune, and no one knew her whereabouts. If Kazan could master Tsunade's monstrous strength fist, Konoha might be able to produce a top-tier combatant. Kazan had already proven his fists fast enough and hard enough. But he could be even harder. As long as he could master the Senju clan's monstrous strength fist, his fists would be more astonishing than any ninjutsu. Let's leave it at that for now. If Tsunade isn't willing when the time comes, then I will pass the monstrous strength fist to Kazan. As Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi believed he still had this right. Everything was for the sake of the village's future. Monstrous strength fist. Kazan naturally also had designs on this technique, otherwise there would be no need for him to play along with Hiruzen Sarutobi's act. It was made very clear in the original story that this technique originated from the first Hokage, Senju Hashirama. Unlike Tsunade, who treated the monstrous strength fist as her finishing move, for Senju Hashirama, the monstrous strength fist was just his basic attack. There was a fundamental difference. The Garp template allowed Kazan to obtain an astonishing physique and a massive chakra capacity. Furthermore, as he progressed, the cells in his body would continuously provide him with chakra. It would be too wasteful to let so much chakra go unused. He had to obtain the monstrous strength fist technique. By that time, even Garp in his prime would be surpassed by Kazan. Otherwise, how could he cope with the 6 paths-level characters that appeared in the 4th Shinobi World War, as well as the Otsutsuki in Boruto? Besides this, he also needed to get his hands on the 8 gates. In Garp's memories, there was also a technique called Life Return. This technique would allow Kazan to freely control any part of his body, including his internal organs. Many One Piece fans had speculated that Luffy had actually also mastered this technique. As long as there was sufficient food, Luffy could digest it rapidly, extracting life energy from the food in a short period. It's worth a try. Kazan sat down when he was tired from punching and took a big bite of the roasted deer leg. He could obtain the monstrous strength fist through Hiruzen Sarutobi, but he needed to think carefully about how to obtain the 8 gates. Although I have a very good relationship with Might Dai and his son, it is, after all, a family secret technique that he only mastered after decades of hard training. Kazan was also unsure if Might Dai would be willing to teach the 8 gates to him. Let's take it one step at a time. This afternoon I'll go and beat up Hyuga Asuka, see if I can complete another achievement, then consider the rest. Hyuga Asuka, he was determined to beat him up. Even Jesus couldn't stop him, that was what Kazan said. 8. Sleep. Kazan lay down on Hakami and fell asleep just like that. By the time he woke up, the Ninja Academy was almost letting out. Kazan arrived in advance at the path Hyuga Asuka had to take to get home and waited. Soon, Hyuga Asuka appeared in his field of vision. These geniuses weren't called that for nothing. In addition to their outstanding innate talent, they were also diligent enough. Like the likes of Uchiha Jing and Hyuga Asuka, after school, they would all conduct their own training. You're here, Kazan. Hyuga Asuka didn't seem surprised by Kazan's arrival. Oh, you knew I would come. Naturally, Kakashi and Uchiha Jing have both been defeated by you. It stands to reason that I, Hyuga Asuka, would definitely become your target. Although he didn't know what Kazan's purpose was, since Kakashi and Uchiha Jing had both been sought out as one of the strongest of this generation, he, Hyuga Asuka, would naturally be sought out by Kazan as well. He just had that kind of confidence. Hyuga Asuka was very happy that Kazan had come to him. Otherwise, others might think he was inferior to that Uchiha. However, do not lump me together with Kakashi and Uchiha Jing. The Hyuga clan's bloodline limit is the strongest. It is said that the Uchiha clan is arrogant to the bone, and the Hyuga clan is no less so. These great ninja clans are born with bloodline limits, innately leading others by a distance, and each and every one of them is very proud. Whether it's the strongest or not, we'll know after we fight. Kazan grinned, clenched his fists, and suddenly exploded into action. Saru, stepping on the ground dozens of times within 0.36 seconds, the resulting reaction force allowed him to arrive in front of his opponent in the blink of an eye. So fast. Hyuga Asuka displayed the same shock as Uchiha Jing. It was truly because Kazan's speed was overly astonishing. Body flicker technique, but I didn't see him perform any hand seals at all. The situation didn't allow Hyuga Asuka to think too much. Kazan's fist had already smashed over with the force of 1,000 jun. He hurriedly crossed his arms in front of him to block this strike. Boom! Kazan threw a punch, sending Hyuga Asuka flying. So heavy. Hyuga Asuka only felt his arms go numb. The power of this punch made him involuntarily think of the Konoha princess Tsunede's monstrous strength fist. If he hadn't used chakra to defend, his hands would have been crippled on the spot. In the time it took to think, Kazan's new punch had already broken through the air and smashed over. Byakugan! He screamed wildly in his heart. Fierce veins appeared at the corners of his eyes, and blood vessels pulsed like worms. In an instant, Hyuga Asuka's field of vision had no blind spots. Through Kazan's skin, he saw the flow of chakra inside Kazan's body. Then, he was shocked again. Pure physical strength, this punch actually doesn't have any chakra enhancement. He felt it was incredible. While moving, Kazan actually hadn't used chakra for assistance. Everything was pure physical strength. How is this a human? He is simply a ferocious beast. Chapter 16, Kazan is fighting again. How is this possible? Can a mortal human body be strong to this extent? Without any augmentation from chakra, that meant Kazan's fist was not the monstrous strength fist he had guessed, but simply a punch. Before he arrived, the wind of his punch struck first. Hyuga Asuka hurriedly raised his hands to block Kazan's iron fist and immediately launched a counterattack. Gentle fist. 8 trigrams 32 palms. He let out a fierce shout, thrusting his hands out like blades toward the pressure points on Kazan's body. Guanyuan Tanzhong Niguan Yongquan Beishui. Hyuga Asuka went all out, holding nothing back, his hands striking one after another like raindrops, hitting different parts of Kazan's body. He truly deserved to be called a genius of the Hyuga clan of this generation. The gentle fist art, 8 trigrams 32 palms, was an incomplete version of the 8 trigrams 64 palms, only one step away from the complete 64 palms. However, every palm strike he landed failed to achieve the desired result. The flow of chakra inside Kazan's body was never cut off by him. In fact, Hyuga Asuka had the heavy sensation that every palm strike was hitting steel. By the time he finished the 32 palms, his hands had become bright red. Iron body. Only after his opponent finished all 32 palms did Kazan utter 2 words. This was exactly the second form of the Rokushiki he had comprehended, iron body. In the world of pirates, the iron body among the 6 styles had always been regarded as a rather useless existence, especially with the appearance and upgrading of the haki system. Viewers discovered that this iron body, where one stands still and takes a beating, had almost no advantage compared to armament haki. However, the truth was, armament haki was a type of energy attached to the surface of the body, while iron body was training from the inside out. Kazan did not feel that iron body was useless. On the contrary, he valued the cultivation of iron body very much. He wanted to use the training of iron body to polish his body to the limit, from the inside out. As for Hyuga Asuka, or simply put, the gentle fist art of the Hyuga clan, it happened to be completely countered by iron body. What kind of jutsu is this? Hyuga Asuka's confident expression wavered. Even the secret technique of the Hyuga clan, gentle fist, could not penetrate Kazan's defense. This was too unbelievable. Iron body, as long as you polish your body to be as solid as steel, you can do it too. Polish the body to be as solid as steel. This was simply a joke. Humans are humans, how can a body of flesh and blood be compared to steel? Even the Reikage of the Hidden Cloud Village, who possessed an indestructible body, achieved it through the augmentation of ninjutsu. How could a mortal body do it? But there was no opportunity for him to think anymore. Kazan's fists were already falling like a violent storm. Hyuga Asuka blocked hurriedly, activating his Byakugan fully, attempting to see through all of Kazan's movements. But it was useless. Infinite. Fist bone. Kazan roared, his fists falling like a rainstorm, every punch being a serious one. Hyuga Asuka could only hold on for a moment before he could no longer parry. Bangs, bangs, bang. Kazan's fists struck Hyuga Asuka one after another. Even though his opponent used chakra for defense, it was useless. He was still sent flying, crashing straight through a house by the road, and without stopping, he continued to fly toward the next one. Ugh! Hyuga Asuka spat out a mouthful of blood, and by the time his body stopped flying, he was already unconscious. Fortunately, Kazan retracted his fists in advance, realizing that his opponent could not withstand it, and decisively stopping. Otherwise, just this move could have beaten Hyuga Asuka to death. The battle was over. As expected, a group of villagers had already emerged nearby, pointing and whispering. They just knew that this little troublemaker Kazan couldn't stay quiet. After beating the Uchiha, how could he not beat the Hyuga clan? Besides watching the spectacle, they were also amazed at Kazan's combat power. First it was the genius Kakashi, and then the Uchiha and the Hyuga. This little devil Kazan is going to defy the heavens. Was he always this strong? Defeated the geniuses of the Uchiha and Hyuga clan, using only taijutsu. How did I not know that taijutsu was this powerful? Later, the villagers discussed among themselves. The Uchiha and the Hyuga were still too authoritative in Konoha. The two bloodline limits, Byakugan and Sharingan, made it easier for them to become strong from birth compared to ordinary ninjas. Especially the Uchiha, almost as soon as they awakened their eyes, they were Jonin. The Hyuga clan was famous for their reconnaissance ability, able to detect traps and crises in advance. Many ninja squads hoped to have a ninja from the Hyuga clan on their team. The two strongest ninja clans in Konoha were not just bragging, they had a record to prove it. Yet the geniuses of their generation had all been beaten unconscious by Kazan's pair of fists. For a time, the villagers began to rank Kazan alongside Kakashi as the two strongest geniuses of this generation in Konoha. Make way, the police force is on duty. The people from the Uchiha arrived quickly. Seeing that it was that brat Kazan again, they were so angry they almost ground their teeth to dust. However, when they saw Hyuga Asuka slumped against the wall and unconscious, the eyes of the Uchiha clan members softened slightly. Now I see if anyone still dares to look down on the Uchiha. The people from the Hyuga clan have also been beaten by this brat. The Uchiha felt much more balanced inside. Proud as they were, they hated hearing others say they were famous for nothing. Now it was fine, the Hyuga clan had also been done in. I see who dares to gossip in the future. It wasn't that their Uchiha weren't capable, it was just that this brat was too monstrous, able to sweep through the current generation with a pair of fists. However, this hateful brat caused too much trouble, looking for fights in the village every few days. If it weren't for the third Hokage's protection, they would have definitely dragged this brat to the police force to pick up soap. After they arrived at the scene, they were not in a hurry to arrest Kazan. As expected, Anbu ninjas soon arrived at the news, carrying the will of Hiruzen Sarutobi, and took Kazan to the Hokage building. Immediately, Kazan. Hiruzen Sarutobi's roar almost reached every corner of Konoha. Just having finished school at the Ninja Academy, Kurenai Yuhai heard the Hokage-sama's roar. Without needing to think, she knew it must be Kazan causing trouble again. It wasn't just her who thought of it, Rin Nohara and Anko Mitarashi also guessed it. I wonder who was beaten this time. I bet it's definitely Hyuga Asuka. Anko blurted out, the answer obvious. Since he had already beaten the Uchiha, Kazan certainly wouldn't let the remaining Hyuga off. Is it really okay, offending both the Uchiha and Hyuga clans in one go? Rin Nohara was a bit worried. Whether it was the Uchiha or the Hyuga, they were both high-level families in the village and the pillars of Konoha. Their own geniuses had been beaten up for no reason. They would surely want to get back the lost face. You guys go back first, I have something to do, so I'm leaving. Kurenai decided to go home and bring in reinforcements, asking her father to step forward and plead on his behalf. Chapter 17, Hiruzen Sarutobai's Ambition. Dad, how is Kazan? Yuhai Shinku returned quickly. She did not refuse her daughter's request, and she was also very curious to see what the genius who had successively defeated the Uchiha and Hyuga looked like. Don't worry, he's fine, Yuhai Shinku rubbed her daughter's head. Puppy love. Such things were not rare in the ninja world. This profession had too high a risk factor and was one of the shortest-lived professions. Therefore, ninjas often started families at a very young age. No one could guarantee when they might die in battle. Yuhai Shinku was also someone who had been through it, so she didn't think it was a big deal. Is he really okay? Yes, the Hokage-sama seems to think highly of him. The clan chiefs of both the Uchiha and Hyuga came forward to demand punishment for Kazan, but the third Hokage protected him. Geniuses were always treated differently. Moreover, the third Hokage's intentions were actually not hard to guess. A flash of wisdom crossed Yuhai Shinku's eyes. From Orochimaru Jiraiya, Minato Namikaze, and now to Kazan. It was evident that Hiruzen Sarutobai had the intention to support a civilian Hokage, allowing the village to truly achieve unification. The previous two Hokage were both from the Senju clan. This had created the supreme status of the Senju clan in Konoha. The second Hokage, Senju Tobirama, did not choose to pass the position of Hokage to his descendants, but instead chose Hiruzen Sarutobai. It stood to reason that at that time Nidaime, second, Sama had already considered that for the village to develop in the future, Konoha could not remain the Konoha of the Senju clan. Nowadays, the third Hokage was merely thoroughly implementing the will of the second Hokage. He wanted everyone to see that Konoha was not a Konoha of ninja families, but a Konoha for everyone. If everything went smoothly, according to Hiruzen Sarutobai's plan. In the future Konoha, the concept of ninja clans would be blurred. Families like the Uchiha and Hyuga might even intermarry with other ninja clans, or even civilians. That's great, I'm going out now, Dad. Please tell Mom that I won't be back for dinner. Where are you going? I'm going to help Kazan repair his house. Since when could you repair a house? Yuhai Shinku shook her head, not exposing her daughter's true thoughts. On the other side, Kazan was, unsurprisingly, punished again to repair streets and houses. He found himself becoming increasingly proficient at it. If he didn't work as a ninja in the future, he could become a handyman. With this skill, he certainly wouldn't starve. After beating up Hyuga Asuka, he was, unsurprisingly, protected by Hiruzen Sarutobai again. It probably isn't as simple as just thinking highly of my future. That old man, Hiruzen Sarutobai, is likely trying to weaken the power of other ninja clans in the village. In the manga and anime, Hiruzen Sarutobai was always a kind old man who could give everything for the village. But that was only on the surface. There were too many things that couldn't be explained. Take the Senju clan, the founding family of Konoha. The reason Konoha was able to be born was largely because other ninja clans were attracted by Senju Hashirama's strength and charisma. When he was alive, he was loved by the whole village, and Konoha flourished. He alone was enough to deter the entire ninja world. It wasn't until he passed away from illness, shortly after the battle, with Uchiha Madara at the Valley of the End, that the First Ninja World War immediately broke out. His successor was his younger brother, Senju Tobirama, who did not have the power of Senju Hashirama to sweep through the ninja world, but the construction and management concepts he promoted benefited Konoha for decades. However, it was such a Senju clan that had produced two Hokage, yet after the first and second died, it quickly exited the stage of history. Although the Senju clan was not extinct, just retired, but being forced to give up their lofty status in Konoha to retire was enough to prove many things. It was likely that the Senju clan chief at the time had already realized that if they didn't retreat, they would very likely become history completely. After the Senju clan withdrew from the big stage of Konoha, it was the turn of the other founder of Konoha, the Uchiha. It was just a pity that the proud Uchiha didn't know how to retreat and even wanted to rebel, eventually ending up with the fate of being annihilated. If one could understand this by assuming Black Zetsu was the pusher behind the scenes, Black Zetsu needed the Rinnegan to appear in the world to revive its old mother, Otsutsuki Kaguya. It could be said to be one of the existences that least wanted the Senju and Uchiha to fail. Therefore, it was hard not to suspect that all of this was being pushed by Hiruzen Sarutobi in the dark. Hiruzen Sarutobi was a pure-blood successor of the Will of Fire. But his excessive emphasis on protection and peace led to multiple indulgences of the dark side. His Will of Fire emphasized sacrifice and legacy, trusting the next generation, and breaking down clan barriers to create a Konoha for everyone. In short, apart from his methods not being tough enough, Hiruzen Sarutobi was quite skilled at playing politics. Kazan. While lost in thought, Kurenai Yuhai's voice came from afar. Kazan looked up and saw Kurenai Yuhai jogging over from the other end of the street. Upon meeting, she complained, "Why are you fighting with people again? Are you hurt?" "No, I'm perfectly fine. Don't fight anymore in the future. Dad said that the Uchiha and Hyuga have strong opinions about you." Of course they did. He had stepped on their geniuses to climb up. It shouldn't happen again in the future. After hammering the Uchiha and Hyuga, Kazan had completed another hidden achievement. However, it wasn't famous in Konoha, but swept the descendants of Otsutsuki 1. Another consecutive hidden achievement. Unsurprisingly, to completely complete this achievement, he probably had to beat up the other descendants of the Otsutsuki. Otsutsuki Kaguya was the progenitor of Chakra, and before she was sealed, she had 2 sons. Otsutsuki Hamura and Otsutsuki Hagoromo. These 2 were the ancestors of the Uchiha and Hyuga clans, and also the direct descendants of Otsutsuki Kaguya. After that, Otsutsuki Hamura and Otsutsuki Hagoromo also branched out, giving birth to other descendants. This included the nearly extinct Uzumaki clan, as well as the Kaguya clan of the Hidden Mist Village, including the Jin and Kin brothers of the Hidden Cloud Village, and the Byakugan clan living on the moon. This achievement was neither easy nor difficult to handle. The easy part was that with Garp's combat power, beating up the descendants of the Otsutsuki was very easy. The difficult part was that many of these descendants of the Otsutsuki had already gone to sell salted duck eggs. He couldn't remember when the Kaguya clan was wiped out, only that it seemed like only one Kimimaro was left. Oh no, it was Kimimaro. The Jin and Kin brothers had already been sent to meet their ancestors by the second Hokage, Senju Tobirama, and it wasn't even clear if they had any descendants. Chapter 18, Monstrous Strength and 8 Gates. Kazan was likely able to achieve this accomplishment because the Uchiha and the Hyuga are direct descendants of Otsutsuki Hagoromo and Otsutsuki Hamura, and thus count as a single achievement. This achievement once again brought Kazan a 10% fusion rate with the Monkey D, Garp Template. He only felt that his pair of iron fists were now simply indestructible. The only pity was that even with the fusion rate reaching 20%, Kazan still hadn't awakened Haki. Logically speaking, 20% of Monkey D, Garp's combat power should already satisfy the prerequisites for practicing Haki. 20% of Monkey D, Garp would have absolutely no problem beating Monkey D, Luffy during the Summit War era. One must know that even in the anime, at the advanced age of 76-78, Monkey D, Garp still possessed Admiral-level combat power. Therefore, I absolutely meet the conditions for practicing Haki now. Thinking it, doing it, Kazan decided to start practicing Haki tomorrow. After repairing the house, Kurenai ran off with Kazan to the Forest of Death to have a unique dinner. Even though the Forest of Death was eerie at night, with beasts roaring from time to time, Kurenai Yuhai no longer felt afraid. Watching Kazan eat meat in big mouthfuls, Kurenai leaned in a little closer. It would be nice if days could always be like this. However, the ninja world seemed quite turbulent recently. From the recent conversations between her father and mother, she sensed that a storm was coming. "Are you full?" "Yeah, I'm full." "All right, then I'll see you back." "Okay." Kazan brushed the dust off his backside, picked up a pile of giant deer antlers, and left the Forest of Death with Kurenai. "Will it hurt a lot?" During today's hunt, Kazan's clothes were torn. Finding them bothersome, he tore them off directly, revealing the various scars on his body left from fighting beasts in the Forest of Death since he was little. Not to mention, it looked quite stylish, very similar to Monkey D, Luffy, with a large cross on his chest. But to Kurenai's eyes, it was a bit shocking. I suppose so, I've already forgotten how it felt at the time. Kazan had truly forgotten. At that time, he had been blinded by the killing intent, and only knew his opponent was a lion. I'm here, see you tomorrow, Kazan. Yeah. Kazan left after dropping her off, and Kurenai watched his back until it completely disappeared before turning around. As a result, she ran into her parents standing at the door, watching her with knowing smiles. Dad, Mom, is that the child who defeated the Uchiha and the Hyuga? Yeah, he is Kazan. He looks sturdy and spirited, very nice. Our Kurenai has great taste. This child will be very handsome in the future. Kurenai's mother commented, even wanting to chat with Kazan. Not to mention his strength, he looked very spirited. Hearing from her husband that he was a ninja who practiced taijutsu, she felt very reassured. Mom, what are you saying? I'm ignoring you. Kurenai Yuhai's cheeks turned red. She squeezed past her parents, ran into her room and locked the door, refusing to be seen. Youth is truly wonderful. Yeah. Then, tonight, let's. Ahem, I have a mission tomorrow. We'll talk about this when I get back. Shinku Yuhai tried to use the mission as an excuse to dodge, but he couldn't escape his wife's iron grip. The next day, Hokage building. Hiruzen Sarutobi, as always, arrived at the office early to handle official business. But today was a bit different. The quiet environment felt as if it had encountered a demolition crew, with violent crashing sounds coming to his ears from time to time. Hiruzen Sarutobi was as calm as water, focusing on his work without looking aside. But as the sound continued to assault him, the veins on his forehead began to throb, and in the end, he couldn't help but explode. Has that brat Kazan not finished practicing yet? Yes, Hokage-sama. He is still continuously striking the mountain behind the village with his fists. Cold sweat dripped down the Ambu's forehead. It turned out to be Kazan, because he had fused another 10% of the Monkey D, Garp Template. Hitting trees no longer satisfied him, so he had run behind the Hokage building and started pounding the mountain range with his fists. What kind of combat power is 20% of Monkey D, Garp? It must have already reached John in combat power, but his fighting style was direct, relying on a pair of iron fists, lacking the tricky methods of a ninja. 2 hours? It had already been 2 hours. Was he not worried about overtraining and ruining himself? Even Hiruzen Sarutobi had never seen such an explosive way of training. Hokage-sama, do you need me to go stop him? No need, let him continue training. Although he said that, Hiruzen Sarutobi decided in his heart to go check on Kazan later. He was worried that training like this would ruin Kazan. Putting down his pen, he went back to his old trade, using the telescope technique to spy. In the image, Kazan was pounding the surface of the mountain with all his might, punch by punch. The frequency and strength of every punch were completely consistent. He dared not imagine if Kazan continued to grow like this, whether Konoha would give birth to a top-tier powerhouse like the third Reikage. Although Konoha did not have the lightning release chakra mode and subsequent ninjutsu, that was the secret technique of the hidden cloud village. However, Konoha was the greatest of the 5 great ninja villages. They had other techniques that could substitute. The Senju clan's monstrous strength fist and the forbidden technique 8 gates. It was not impossible to cultivate a powerhouse who wouldn't lose to the third Reikage. The Sannin were his disciples. Hiruzen Sarutobi had his own unique understanding of cultivating talent. There was no need to force the practice of ninjutsu. Teaching students in accordance with their aptitude was the only way to realize potential. I should go see this child. Hiruzen Sarutobi put down his work, deciding to go see Kazan to see if he could offer some guidance. He had his own way of winning people's hearts. In the original work, he did not prevent the exposure of Uzumaki Naruto's identity as the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, and even concealed the news that Naruto was the only heir of the hero 4th Hokage, which made Naruto suffer cold looks and ridicule from a young age. At only a few years old, he had already experienced most of the darkness in the human world. And he, Hiruzen Sarutobi, became the only light in Naruto's life. No matter how much trouble Naruto caused, he acted like a kind grandfather, tolerating everything Naruto did. There were many similar cases. Toward Uchiha Shisui and Uchiha Itachi, he used the righteousness of the village to coerce them into working for him. Toward Kakashi Hatake, he made him a squad leader jonin, untying his long-standing knot. And now, he also intended to transform into a grandfather figure, becoming the person closest to Kazan in Konoha. However, before he could leave, a ninja from the intelligence department brought a scroll to his office. Third Hokage Sama, its intelligence from the front lines. Hiruzen Sarutobi immediately took it. Konoha's intelligence transmission had special codes that needed to be unlocked by special techniques. The intelligence Hiruzen Sarutobi received had already been deciphered and could be read directly. Chapter 19, Practical Assessment. Has the intelligence been sent back? It was sent back to the village immediately, Lord Danzo. At this moment, Danzo had already left Konoha and arrived at the border of the Land of Fire. As the scapegoat Hokage, his work was even busier than Hiruzen Sarutobi's. Nowadays, the friction between ninja villages was becoming increasingly intense, and Hiruzen Sarutobi needed Danzo to personally go to the border to hold the line. After arriving at the border, Danzo had already commanded his troops to intercept and kill several waves of scouts. Having come through the Second Shinobi World War, he knew very well that such friction would not disappear. It would only gradually escalate until war fully erupted. If this continues, the Third Shinobi World War will inevitably break out. We should strike first and deal a painful blow to the other ninja villages in one fell swoop. The intelligence he sent back to Konoha clearly explained the situation at the border, and he hoped Hiruzen Sarutobi would take immediate action. But Danzo knew that the weak-willed Hiruzen Sarutobi would only keep thinking about how to quell the disputes. When necessary, he would even sacrifice the village interests. Yet Danzo would not allow it. His methods were far tougher than Hiruzen Sarutobi's. He even hoped to concentrate his forces and launch an all-out attack to crush a ninja village. To avoid falling into the encirclement of the four major ninja villages, as happened in the First War. But he was not the Hokage. In the end, he was not the Hokage. It was just because he had been one step too late back then, failing to step forward immediately, that it had become a thorn in his heart. Danzo's thoughts returned to that year, when he followed his teacher, the second Hokage Tobirama, to the Hidden Cloud Village to conclude a covenant and sign a peace treaty. As a result, they were ambushed by Kinkaku and Jinkaku on the way back to the village. At a critical moment, Tobirama made a decision, asking his group of students who was willing to stay behind to cover their retreat and create a chance for the others to survive. Everyone knew that staying behind meant death. There was absolutely no way to survive. At that time, Danzo kept telling himself in his heart, speak up, stay behind yourself to cover the retreat, and let the teacher and the others return to the village safely. In the end, it was Hiruzen Sarutobi who spoke up a step before him, volunteering to stay behind and die. The result was that being just one step late cost him the position of Hokage. Their teacher had long since planned to stay behind alone. The previous moment was merely a test to see who was qualified to become his successor. It wasn't necessarily that Danzo absolutely had to be the Hokage. It was more that he resented his own weakness back then, and that he hadn't been as resolute as Hiruzen Sarutobi. Afterward he grew. He shouldered the darkness of Konoha and became a powerhouse with a demeanor quite like his teacher. Conversely, the once brave Hiruzen Sarutobi had his edges smoothed away by a false peace. Now he was more suitable to be Konoha's Hokage. Hiruzen, you are no longer fit to lead Konoha. Only I can lead Konoha to recreate the peak of Shodai, first, Sama. While he was lost in thought, a root ninja wearing a ghost mask brought him the latest news from the village. That child has successively defeated the geniuses of Kakashi, the Uchiha, and the Hyuga clan. Danzo's expression froze, and a flash of surprise crossed his eyes. That brat who only practiced taijutsu, and whom he considered to have a personality ill-suited for the temperament of Root, actually possessed such talent. Danzo understood that Kakashi being defeated might have been due to external factors, and it didn't necessarily mean that the child named Kazan was truly that strong. But since both the Uchiha and the Hyuga had been defeated, this was worth his deep consideration. What a pity! Danzo's eyes quickly returned to calmness. This time he had misjudged, missing out on the two most outstanding geniuses of this generation, but he had also absorbed quite a bit of fresh blood from other ninja clans. A small loss doesn't count as a loss. Meanwhile, behind the Hokage residence, Kazan had stopped his boxing practice. Immediately, he sat cross-legged on the ground and created an additional shadow clone. Without a word, they just exchanged a glance with the shadow clone, and they understood each other's intentions. A moment later, bang! Kazan was sent flying, rolling on the ground several times before coming to a stop. He touched his face, it hurt. As expected of his own shadow clone, those fists were truly hard. Continue. He gritted his teeth and continued, wanting to master observation haki and armament haki as quickly as possible. Kazan possessed Garp's training memories. Regarding observation haki, his training method was not much different from that of Rayleigh, that mediocre teacher who misled his students. Using the most brutal and direct method of taking a beating to realize it himself. At this moment, Kazan somewhat wished he had a master like Kaido to guide him. 1 club for Ryuo, 2 clubs for Advanced Conqueror's Haki, 3 clubs for Instant Awakening. It's incredible. Would he be beaten to death directly? Kazan indicated that he possessed the template of the monkey family. He could also do sit-ups, so there was no problem at all. However, he just let that thought pass. Come again. Kazan got up, closed his eyes, turned his back to the shadow clone, and continued taking a beating. There wasn't much time left before the Ninja Academy's graduation exam. In other words, he would soon leave the safe zone to see the outside world. He must seize the time to master observation haki. In this ninja world, there existed such insidious things as genjutsu. This was simply the nemesis of taijutsu ninjas. If he didn't want to be killed inexplicably, mastering observation haki was an urgent priority. On the other side, with the graduation exam approaching, the study tasks for this year's students had become heavy. Recently, everyone had been gritting their teeth, turning into Might Guy, secretly training during most of their spare time, hoping to pass the graduation assessment safely and become a glorious genin. The teachers were also arranging tests every few days, striving to help students identify their weaknesses and correct them. And today, it just so happened to be the practical combat test, a comprehensive examination of the student's current strength. As a result, before the Chunin teacher had even called for the start, the arrogant Uchiha and Hyuga had already stepped forward. Kazan, I want to challenge you. Kazan, this time I will defeat you. Both of them found Kazan almost simultaneously. Their purpose was the same, to wash away their previous shame. Both of them had a dark history of being beaten up by Kazan, and they had even been fellow patients for a period of time. They could not accept losing to a commoner, a ninja who only knew taijutsu. Uchiha Jing had the most intense reaction. Actually, after he was discharged from the hospital, he tried to ambush Kazan, but for some reason, this plague-ridden guy suddenly stopped extra training after school, and he left the school so fast that no one could trace him. He considered his defeat to Kazan last time an accident. Even though he already acknowledged Kazan's strength, he didn't think he would lose. During his hospitalization, he aggressively reviewed the fight, believing that as long as he used genjutsu, he would definitely be able to defeat him. As a result, he tried to ambush Kazan several times in a row, but never caught him. When he challenged Kazan at school, the other party wouldn't accept, completely lacking the heroism of the original. A real man does not have the word retreat when facing a challenge. Plus, with those guys in the class mocking him every day, he was almost so angry he was about to awaken his Sharingan, you know. Chapter 20, Not Very Lucky. Kazan certainly wouldn't accept the challenge. His real body was currently training in the hills behind the Hokage building. The Kazan appearing at the Ninja Academy was merely his shadow clone. Given the attitude of the third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, toward him, he wouldn't be punished even if discovered, but it would inevitably cause some trouble. Kazan knew today was the Ninja Academy's combat assessment, but he figured that with so many classmates, he wouldn't necessarily run into the strongest ones. As long as he didn't encounter those strongest few, his shadow clone would be sufficient to handle it. Facing the challenge from Uchiha Jing and Hyuga Asuka, Kazan's shadow clone ignored them, instead fixing his gaze on the Chunin teacher, waiting for the teacher to announce the match pairings. His luck had always been decent, and he believed he could get through today relying on his shadow clone. The Chunin teacher quickly interrupted the challenge between Uchiha Jing and Hyuga Asuka, then proceeded to announce the groupings for today's combat assessment. The teacher said, "First group, Uchiha Obito versus Might Guy." Hearing this, Kazan's shadow clone turned to look at Uchiha Obito. In the original story, this match did indeed happen, and the result was Uchiha Obito being instantly defeated by Might Guy. The two quickly took the stage and formed the seal of confrontation. This was a tradition in Konoha. Once they formed this hand seal, it signified that both sides accepted the battle. After the battle ended, they would have to form the seal of reconciliation, representing that everything that just happened would not affect their friendship. It was just the pose struck by those two gay guys at the Valley of the End. Just as in his memories, after Uchiha Obito walked out from the crowd, he kept cheering himself on in his heart. "You can do it, Uchiha Obito, you definitely can, believe in the hard work you've put in during this time." As Kakashi and Kazan became famous in Konoha, Uchiha Obito's desire for power grew even stronger. He hoped that he, too, could be as dazzling as Kazan and the others, attracting the attention and gaze of Rin Nohara. During this period, he had been training very hard, and now was the moment for a miracle. "Obito, do your best," Rin Nohara cheered for him from the crowd. Upon hearing this, Obito's face broke into a silly grin, his mind automatically conjuring images of punching Kakashi, kicking Kazan, and winning the beauty over. This fantasy made him unable to even hear the Chunin teacher shouting, "Start." By the time he came back to his senses, Might Guy had already let out a strange Ada cry, quickly closed in on Uchiha Obito, leaped into the air, and knocked Uchiha Obito out of commission with a whip kick. The scene immediately erupted into bursts of laughter. Rin Nohara also helplessly held her forehead. Kurenai Yuhai, standing next to Rin Nohara, couldn't quite understand this best friend of hers. Clearly, the person she liked was Kakashi, yet she had no sense of boundaries with Uchiha Obito, being overly intimate. The first group's duel ended quickly, and next were the other students proceeding with their battles according to the groupings. After all, it was a battle between children, so there wouldn't be that many explosive scenes. Furthermore, the combat assessment prohibited the use of high lethality ninjutsu, relying basically on the three basic jutsus and taijutsu battles. In this regard, it was an advantage for Hyuga Asuka. At the same time, he had always been a top performer in combat assessments, with his grades never falling out of the top 3. This was the natural advantage of the Hyuga clan's bloodline limit, the Byakugan. Kazan's shadow clone watched for a long time, and the more he watched, the more something felt off. As more and more people took the stage, fewer and fewer people remained on the sidelines. Gradually, Kazan realized something was wrong and thought to himself, "It wouldn't really be that I'm going to run into this guy, would it?" Just as he finished this thought, the Chunin teacher read out, "Next group, Kazan versus Hyuga Asuka." "It really is." Kazan was stunned for a moment, but he had no choice but to go on stage. Kurenai Yuhai called out, "Kazan." She was one of the few who knew this was Kazan's shadow clone, and her tone hid an imperceptible worry. Hyuga Asuka's strength was evident to all. He was a genius of the Hyuga clan in this generation. She also knew of his obsession with seeking revenge on Kazan and feared that the shadow clone would reveal a flaw and be discovered. Kazan said nonchalantly, "It's fine, nothing will happen even if I'm discovered." He was someone with connections. Waving his hand, Kazan walked onto the stage with steady steps, his naive-looking face still relaxed. After these days of hard work, he had completely mastered the Rokushiki. Shave, iron body moonwalk, paper art finger pistol, tempest kick. One can only say that the talent of Garp's family is truly too high. Although everyone jokes that Kaido is a good teacher, knocking out a 4 Emperor's level combatant with 3 strikes of his club, in the end, it was Luffy's own talent and potential that were monstrous enough. Hyuga Asuka was already eager to try, his chakra slightly surging around his body. he locked his burning gaze onto Kazan and said coldly, "Kazan, this time I will let the whole village know that the Hyuga clan is the strongest." The pride of the Hyuga clan was no less than that of the Uchiha. Compared to commoners, the biggest advantage of ninja clans lies in the fact that the descendants of ninja clans do not need to take detours. Future generations only need to follow the path their ancestors have walked to become excellent ninjas. For Hyuga Asuka, who had already awakened his eyes, his combat power had long reached that of a genin, and advancing to chunin was only a matter of time. On the sidelines, Uchiha Jing clenched his fists, his eyes filled with unwillingness. During those few days in the hospital, he dreamed of completing his revenge against Kazan. A dignified Uchiha was actually beaten into a coma by a commoner, and in front of the whole village. This was harder to bear than killing him. The Chunin teacher stood between the two and immediately raised his hand, saying, "Both sides form the seal of confrontation. Ready, start." As soon as the words fell, Hyuga Asuka took the initiative, opening the Byakugan of the Hyuga clan right from the start. Byakugan! With a fierce shout, chakra, or rather ocular power, erupted from his eyes, sweeping toward the surroundings. He flashed forward, taking advantage of the Byakugan to accurately capture the chakra flow of Kazan's shadow clone, and charged straight at him. His palm formed a blade, carrying soft, yet highly penetrating chakra, aiming directly at Kazan's chakra pressure points. That was the essence of the Hyuga Gentle Fist. Once it hit, it could seal their opponent's chakra flow and make them lose their combat effectiveness. Kazan's shadow clone grinned, not retreating a single step, and met the attack with a pair of iron fists. Fist bone impact. A powerful and heavy punch, even Hyuga Asuka dared not take it head-on. The houses that had been smashed by him recorded the danger of this punch. He hurriedly channeled his chakra, chopping his hand out like a blade, aiming at Kazan's joints. With a slap sound, at the moment the fist and palm collided, Hyuga Asuka actually slapped away Kazan's iron fist. Oh, Kazan's clone looked surprised. Hyuga Asuka keenly caught his change in expression and said, "I've already seen through your technique, Kazan." He let out a loud roar, his heart for revenge surging throughout his entire body. The stain he had brought upon the Hyuga clan, he would wash away with his own hands. Gentle Fist Art, 8 trigrams 32 palms. 8 trigrams 32 palms, this was the strongest technique Hyuga Asuka had mastered at this moment. He started with his strongest strike, which showed how strong his determination for revenge was. Moreover, his Byakugan clearly saw that today, the chakra flowing on Kazan's body was particularly rapid. Clearly, facing him, Kazan had also gotten serious, combining his physical body and chakra to fight him with full force. For some reason, in this situation, a surge of excitement even welled up in his heart. This meant that Kazan, known as one of Konoha's contemporary two prodigies, acknowledged his combat strength. Kurenai Yuhai on the sidelines was a bit nervous, her hands unconsciously clenching the corner of her clothes, whispering, "If it's discovered that Kazan has been using a shadow clone to attend school, he will definitely be punished by the teacher again." Chapter 21, Exposure. During the time he spent thinking, Hyuga Asuka had already swung both palms out simultaneously. The 8 trigrams 32 palms is the incomplete version of the Hyuga clan's secret technique, the 8 trigrams 64 palms. However, the end result is the same. Once the first palm is struck, a relentless, storm-like offensive follows until all 32 palms are completed. The target struck will be unable to move or resist because their chakra flow is blocked. Kazan was unfazed, even though he was just a shadow clone. What the Garp template brought was not only physical potential and talent, but also the combat instincts and aptitude of a peak fighter in the world of pirates. "I've already seen this move, little birdie." Facing Hyuga Asuka's palm strike, Kazan had already clenched his other fist, and taking the initiative, launched an overwhelmingly dominant punch. Fist bone. Impact. Kazan was extremely aggressive. Even when faced with a secret technique of the Hyuga clan, he chose to collide with it head-on. Boom! The punch landed, stirring up a gale and kicking up dust from the ground. Whoa, what is that? Is this really Taijutsu? Kazan is a monster, no wonder he could defeat Kakashi. This punch left Asuma and the others stunned in place, forcing them to raise their hands to block the gale. This was completely different from any kind of taijutsu they knew. With such destructive power, they would even believe it if someone said it was a C-rank wind release ninjutsu. As for Hyuga Asuka, he was sent flying several meters away. His strongest attack, the 8 trigrams 32 palms, was broken by Kazan before it could even touch him. "You've truly improved as well, Kazan." Hyuga Asuka's expression was solemn, but there was no surprise. Only in this way was Kazan worthy of him going all out. After his defeat, Hyuga Asuka had thought a lot, and reviewed many things while hospitalized, all for today's revenge. And Kazan. He was just like him. He hadn't become arrogant after defeating him, but instead had improved further, which meant the other party had acknowledged him. Last time he didn't even use chakra to fight me, but today he consumed a large amount of chakra to throw a punch and break my gentle fist 8 trigrams 32. Wait! Hyuga Asuka's gaze suddenly sharpened. Why has your chakra become so little? He couldn't believe it, his expression gradually turning gloomy as he thought of a certain possibility. The power of that punch from Kazan was no different from when he fought him before. However, when Kazan used this galaxy impact move before, he used pure physical strength without using chakra, but today. He widened his Byakugan, his ocular power piercing through Kazan's skin to lock onto all the chakra within Kazan's body. The chakra is several times less than before, as if it has been split into many parts. Multi-shadow clone technique. Hyuga Asuka was a disciple of a great clan, so his insight was naturally extraordinary. Moreover, their clan also had this technique. That means. Kazan, you actually dared to fight me using only a shadow clone. He roared angrily, his face flushed red, as if he had suffered a grave injustice. Shadow clone? Asuka just said this is Kazan's shadow clone, did I hear that right? Yes, you heard right. Is that possible? Of course it's possible. The Hyuga clan's Byakugan is no ordinary eye. The sidelines immediately erupted. How could they have imagined that this was actually just Kazan's shadow clone? He looked completely no weaker than Hyuga Asuka, perhaps even stronger, and yet you're saying this is just a shadow clone of Kazan. Everyone present stared at Kazan, as if waiting to hear him admit it himself. You guys with cataracts and red-eye disease are really troublesome. Kazan stood in the center of the field and withdrew his fist. The insight of these two clans was astonishing, capable of seeing through all illusions, even if they weren't the evolved to the limit Rinnegan and Tenseigan. He actually admitted it. Uchiha Jin clenched his fists. He wanted revenge even more than Hyuga Asuka, because the Uchiha clan was prouder than anyone else. Senju Tobarama once evaluated the Uchiha as the true clan of love. Their power stemmed from emotions, and they cared for each other more than anyone else. He had originally planned to observe this dragon and tiger fight carefully, so he could firmly stay ahead of Hyuga Asuka and do intelligence gathering for his revenge against Kazan. The two's exchange did not disappoint him. Their brief clash already demonstrated strength, surpassing everyone else in the class. And yet, this was actually just one of Kazan's shadow clones. Uchiha Obito, who had already woken up, had a dazed expression. This is just that guy's shadow clone. The Kazan before him was already so powerful that it made him feel a sense of powerlessness. Just like Kakashi back then, he was an opponent he couldn't defeat even if he went all out. But this was just a clone of Kazan. The world of geniuses, is it really so far away from me? Kazan is so strong, Rin Nohara exclaimed. In truth, none of them had really seen Kazan in action. Kakashi, Uchiha Jin, and Hyuga Asuka were all the same. Rin Nohara and the others had all heard from others that Kazan had beaten these three up. They thought they would finally get to see it today, but in the end, it was just a clone. A mere clone, possessing only a portion of Kazan's chakra and lacking that peerless physical body, how much of his full strength could it possibly unleash? Kazan's tacit admission, like a heavy, crushing blow, silenced everyone present. A moment later, the Chunin teacher reacted, his face quickly heating up. Kazan, don't forget to like, comment, subscribers, and share to Infinite Novel Audio. He shouted, somewhat exasperated, using a shadow clone to attend class. This was disrespectful to him and the Ninja Academy, a desecration of this sacred place. He would definitely make this brat pay. I knew this would happen. Looking at the aggressive teacher, Kazan's shadow clone rubbed his head. Then, under everyone's gaze, he performed hand signs and actively dispelled the shadow clone technique, turning into a puff of smoke and dissipating. Better leave this kind of troublesome matter to the original body. Poof tilde. The teacher was stunned for a moment, then became even angrier. You can't run away, Kazan, just you wait. He didn't plan to continue with the practical assessment either. After letting the students have free time, he rushed towards the Hokage building to report Kazan. Chapter 22, Hiruzen Sarutobi takes an apprentice. Hokage-sama. The Chunin teacher's speed at tattling was faster than even the yellow flash. In no time at all, he had already appeared in Hiruzen Sarutobi's office. What is it? Hiruzen Sarutobi turned his head, and the latter hurriedly informed him of what had just happened. This was the shadow clone technique, or possibly even the multi-shadow clone technique. Such a technique did not belong to civilian ninja. Combined with the rumors in the village, and the fact that Hiruzen Sarutobi was staunchly protecting Kazan, the Chunin teacher naturally assumed this was a technique Hiruzen Sarutobi had taught to Kazan. Hokage-sama, please do not indulge Kazan any further. Even though Kazan defeated Kakashi, remaining at the Ninja Academy to study is still the most important thing. He hoped that Kazan would study diligently at the Ninja Academy and become a pillar of Konoha in the future. Kazan had such potential, so he should study even harder. Hiruzen Sarutobi understood. The teacher before him had clearly misunderstood him. However, he wasn't wrong. He was indeed indulging Kazan. But ordinary people often cannot understand the world of a genius. Come with me, I was planning to head over there anyway. Hiruzen Sarutobi tidied up the intelligence reports from the border and took the teacher out. The latter, puzzled, followed Hiruzen Sarutobi all the way to the back mountain. The closer they got, the louder the commotion became, and the vibrations coming from the back mountain grew more intense. When the two drew near, the Chunin teacher finally saw clearly that this was actually caused by someone. That person was none other than Kazan, recently hailed as one of Konoha's twin prodigies, and he was punching the mountainside, blow after blow. He was actually using the mountain to train his fists. Kazan stopped for a moment. Hearing this, Kazan turned around and, seeing Hiruzen Sarutobi and his class teacher, was not surprised. The memories of his shadow clone had long since entered his brain along with the chakra. He already knew what had happened at the Ninja Academy. You? Kazan looked very disheveled. His haki training had resulted in him being beaten into a pulp by his own shadow clone. Of course. The most shocking sight was Kazan's fists, which were incredibly red and looked as if they could start bleeding at any moment. Seeing this scene, he finally understood why Hiruzen Sarutobi was indulging Kazan. This wasn't indulgence at all. Kazan's training method was simply too intense and fierce. Do you understand now? For Kazan, the Ninja Academy is just a carefully arranged greenhouse. I apologize, Hokage-sama. The teacher took a deep breath. Having witnessed Kazan's training method, the Ninja Academy was indeed like a greenhouse. Such an environment was not suitable for a beast like Kazan. What reason did he have to demand that Kazan study at the Ninja Academy? But Kazan is still a child. I believe it would be best for him to return to the Ninja Academy until graduation. There aren't many teachers like Uruka, but they aren't exactly rare either. Many of the Ninja Academy teachers belong to the group with better temperaments. Those who are bellicose or want to improve are either out of the village on missions or on the battlefield making a name for themselves. Those who stay behind to be teachers mostly dislike fighting. Kazan's teacher was clearly one such person. He always gave extra care to those children who had lost their parents. Hiruzen Sarutobi was stunned upon hearing this, then smiled. The other party still didn't understand. However, he didn't mind letting Kazan establish a bond with the village that went deep into his soul. Only in this way would Kazan be wholeheartedly willing to give everything for the village. Just like those departed souls resting peacefully in the Konoha cemetery. He chuckled, "Inao is right. Kazan, what you should be doing now is enjoying your childhood. I won't be going back to school. If I absolutely must go back, I will apply for early graduation." War was imminent. There was no time for him to comfortably laze around at school. Kazan, the teacher, was unwilling to give up. He viewed Kazan as a child, just like Kakashi. Having lost his parents at a young age, his childhood lacked the warmth of a family. This was precisely the part he wanted to help Kazan compensate for. There is no need to apply for early graduation. Since you don't want to go back, then you don't have to. Hokage-sama, hear me out. From now on, until you graduate from the Ninja Academy, I will personally instruct Kazan. What? The Chunin teacher was shocked again upon hearing this. This was the third Hokage. Hiruzen Sarutobi was very young when he took office as Hokage, only in his 20s, and because he happened to encounter the First Shinobi World War, he simply had no time to take on apprentices. It was only after the First Shinobi World War ended, when the first class of students graduated from the Ninja Academy, that he took on apprentices. These three were the Sannin who are now famous throughout the ninja world. Later, with the Second Shinobi World War and the Ninja Academy getting on the right track, Hiruzen Sarutobi never took on apprentices again. Even if it was just instruction, lasting until Kazan graduated, it still counted as being half an apprentice. Thinking of this, the Chunin teacher had no reason to make Kazan return to the Ninja Academy for classes. Then I will leave it to you, Hokage-sama. Kazan is a child who doesn't put people at ease. I hope you can be patient with him. Before leaving, he did not forget to instruct Kazan to study hard while by the Hokage's side, to be obedient, and so on. It must be said, although the Hokage's world is fraught with crises, and Konoha hides many things that cannot see the light of day, the people here are actually quite decent. Inao is a good teacher. Kazan did not deny it. After spending a few years together, Kazan fully realized that Inao was indeed a good teacher. Immediately, he turned his head to look at Hiruzen Sarutobi. "Old man third, how are you going to teach me?" Even though the person in front of him was the Hokage, Kazan still showed no respect. He believed this was brought about by the Garp Template. After all, he was a good youth who respected the old and loved the young. Hiruzen Sarutobi didn't mind. Anyway, Jiraiya Tsunade and Kushina all called him that. This was proof of the unbreakable bond that existed between them. Although I am known as the professor of ninjutsu, I am not very good at taijutsu, so I don't have much to teach you in that regard. This was him being modest. His taijutsu was naturally not bad. When he was young, he was brave and skilled in battle, earning the nickname Shinobi Hero, and teaching ordinary ninja taijutsu was a piece of cake for him. Of course, that was for ordinary ninja. Kazan did not fall into that category. "This is a technique I have prepared for you. It should be useful to you." He took out a scroll he had prepared long ago. Kazan took it, opened it, and discovered it was actually the Senju clan's monstrous strength fist. It was called the monstrous strength fist. Actually, it should more accurately be called monstrous strength. This was a secret technique of the Senju clan, a high-level skill for utilizing chakra. It involved gathering chakra at a single point, and then releasing it all without wasting a bit. This is an A-rank ninjutsu created by my teacher, the Nidaime second Sama, based on the Shodai first, Sama's Vajra strength. So it was created by Senju Tobirama again. Kazan had thought it was a secret technique, handed down by the Senju clan. However, that made sense. Only when Hiruzen Sarutobi mentioned Vajra strength, just now did he remember that Hashirama's monstrous strength was a taijutsu combined with wood release, or rather, Ashura's chakra. But wood release was only awakened by Senju Hashirama alone in the Senju clan, so the birth of the monstrous strength fist naturally could not do without the second Hokage, that master of ninjutsu. Anyway, any technique in Konoha, whose creator was unknown, could just be attributed to Senju Tobirama. I have not mastered this technique myself, but I have seen it. The second Hokage and Tsunade had both mastered this technique, especially Tsunade, who used it as her ultimate move. Having been influenced by it all this time, Hiruzen Sarutobi would have no problem teaching Kazan. Chapter 23: Sacrifice and Dedication. The principle of the monstrous strength fist is to gather chakra into your fists or other parts of your body, concentrate it at a single point, and then release it. To fully master this technique, you must have perfect control over your chakra usage. Otherwise, even if you gather all your chakra, the power you can unleash will be limited. Before training in the monstrous strength fist, Kazan, you need to complete these exercises. Tree climbing and water walking. The Ninja Academy does not teach this kind of training. In the original story, Naruto and Sasuke only learned about it from Kakashi after graduating. The method of training is very simple. Gather chakra at your feet so that you can walk as if on level ground, whether climbing a tree or standing on the surface of the water. The difficulty lies in the fact that, due to the body's acupuncture points, chakra at the feet is the hardest to control. Therefore, once the tree climbing and water walking training is completed, a ninja's control over chakra will reach a higher level. Hiruzen Sarutobi demonstrated it himself, his feet planted on the tree trunk as if he were walking on a stable road. Complete the tree climbing training first, then move on to water walking. Understood. Kazan tapped his fists together, then formed hand seals and created several shadow clones. The little Kazans, looking spirited and eager, emerged and each found a tree to begin their climbing practice. Hiruzen Sarutobi watched Kazan and his shadow clones, the corners of his mouth twitching. It's a pity. If Kazan possessed the same ninjutsu talent as Kakashi, his future achievements would surely surpass Kakashi's. Such chakra capacity is truly astonishing. If not for Kazan's clean background, he would have suspected that Kazan was a member of the Uzumaki clan. Hiruzen Sarutobi hadn't experienced Senju Hashirama's childhood, but he imagined that even if Shodai, first, Sama had possessed more chakra than Kazan at that time, it would only have been by a limited margin. Thud, thud, thud. Later. Soon Kazan and his shadow clones were sprawled out on the ground after falling from the trees. The methods for tree climbing and water walking are simple, but the difficulty of the training is not low. Even a genius like Sasuke spent over a week to complete it. There are no shortcuts to this training. One can only improve chakra control through repeated trial and error, striving to master the flow. Of course, some people are naturally gifted with strong control over chakra. Like Sakura Haruno, who completed the training in a very short time. It wasn't because her ninjutsu talent was higher than Sasuke's, but because Sakura Haruno possessed an extremely high talent for medical ninjutsu. And then there was Kazan. His talent for ninjutsu was indeed not high, and he had even less potential to be a medical ninja, but he had the assistance of his shadow clones. Every so often, he would dispel his shadow clones, integrate all the training memories, reflect on the experience, and then create new shadow clones to continue training. Hiruzen Sarutobi didn't leave entirely. Instead, he left a shadow clone behind to provide personal guidance. The sky gradually grew dark. Kazan still hadn't stopped, and after Hiruzen Sarutobi finished his work, he personally brought a large wild boar before him. When the moon hung high in the night sky, the old man and the young boy sat around a campfire, roasting meat. Your father and mother love you very much, Kazan. They longed more than anyone to stay by your side and watch you grow. Hiruzen Sarutobi spoke without warning, and a trace of unnaturalness flashed across Kazan's expression upon hearing this. This old man was trying to brainwash him with his will of fire rhetoric again. However, there are some things we are compelled to do. Why? Kazan asked at the perfect moment. Because the village is like a great tree, and every person in the village is a leaf on that tree. One day, we will wither and fall, but the old leaves of Konoha will turn into nutrients, allowing new buds to break through the soil. Konoha means falling leaves. Since the beginning, when Senju Hashirama and Uchiha Madara created Konoha, the spirit of sacrifice and dedication has always accompanied this village. Where the leaves of Konoha dance, the fire burns on. Do you understand, Kazan? I understand. He hadn't experienced it, but he could understand. Because the Dragon Kingdom from his original world had walked such a difficult path, with countless predecessors trading their own sacrifices for today's peace. In times of war, no one can remain aloof. The Guangdong army shall not be extinguished, the Sichuan army shall not emerge. This phrase is the best portrayal. 900,000 Guangdong soldiers fought until only 3,000 remained, with every household hanging white silk in mourning. So, is war already unavoidable? Why do you ask? You taught me the monstrous strength fist. Later, Hiruzen Sarutobi fell silent. This was an intelligent child, whose mind was far more delicate than his carefree appearance suggested. He thought of his disciple Jiraiya, who was also outwardly bold but had a delicate heart. During the time before you graduate, I will teach you with all my might. Hiruzen Sarutobi didn't answer directly, saying, Kazan, you are strong, stronger than many. I look forward to the day I see you become a towering tree that can protect Konoha. And then sacrifice everything for Konoha. There is no such thing as a free lunch. Hiruzen Sarutobi's grand package comes with a heavy price. This is Hiruzen Sarutobi's method of managing people, very sophisticated, yet not sophisticated at all. By resonating emotionally, he makes the other party willingly lay down their life for Konoha. I will, Kazan nodded with feigned seriousness, and Hiruzen Sarutobi revealed a satisfied smile. Bonds are the strongest link connecting the village. The next day, Kazan continued his training. After spending a day with 15 shadow clones working simultaneously, even though his ninjutsu talent was unremarkable, he completed the tree climbing training. He began to consolidate his skills, not moving on to water walking until he had fully mastered it. His goal wasn't just tree climbing, but improving his own control over chakra. Hiruzen Sarutobi still sent a shadow clone to provide guidance on the sidelines today. It was spring, and the water was still very cold, but Kazan's physique was unfazed by the chill. He would climb back up immediately after falling in and continue. After training for a while, he would dispel his shadow clones, integrate the training memories, and reorganize them. The speed of his training was so fast that even Hiruzen Sarutobi was astonished. This training speed was more than 10 times that of an ordinary person. It was a pity that this training method could not be used by ordinary people. Only a ninja like Kazan, with vast amounts of chakra in his body and a will as tough as steel, could utilize it. If it were Kakashi, a single shadow clone would be the limit. The water walking training was more troublesome than tree climbing, but Kazan still mastered it in just 2 days. From tree climbing to water walking, Kazan completed this training in only 3 days. Of course, if one were to set aside the shadow clones, even with Hiruzen Sarutobi's guidance, Kazan would likely have needed half a month to complete it. Are you ready? Yes, now you can try to practice the monstrous strength fist. Watching Kazan sprinting across the water, Hiruzen Sarutobi nodded. First, try to gather chakra into your fist, compress it, and then strike with full force. Kazan did as instructed. Compared to the soles of his feet, controlling chakra with his hands was several times easier. This brings to mind Jiraiya. When the pervy sage fought pain, he could use his feet to form hand seals and execute ninjutsu. Jiraiya's control over chakra had clearly reached an unfathomable level. Boom! Kazan threw a punch and easily shattered a tree. This result made him frown. The power of this punch was not even as strong as his pure physical punch. He clearly felt that his control over chakra had improved significantly, so why was the result like this? Don't be surprised, this is the power of your chakra. You haven't combined it with your physical strength yet. Continue. Hiruzen Sarutobi was not surprised. The monstrous strength fist was not so easy to master. This technique is only suitable for freaks who have more chakra than they know what to do with. The more chakra, the greater the power. Ordinary ninjas like Kakashi need to calculate their chakra usage carefully and cannot handle this technique. In comparison, ninjutsu is more efficient for him and better suits Kakashi's combat style. Chapter 24, Hiruzen Sarutobi's Headband. Under Hiruzen Sarutobi's guidance, Kazan fully completed his training in monstrous strength fist. He no longer went to the ninja academy. Some classmates did not understand and were very confused. The Chunin teacher's answer was that Kazan had already graduated from the ninja academy early. Even though it was years after Kakashi's early graduation, and Kakashi was already a Chunin now, Kazan's early graduation didn't seem like much. However, he was, after all, the second student in this class to become a genin, and his combat power was extremely high. Even today, Hyuga Asuka still harbored resentment. He later went back and discovered that he might not even be able to handle one of Kazan's shadow clones. Furthermore, many of these students came from Konoha ninja clans and were part of the core class. They learned from their elders that Kazan seemed to be receiving one-on-one guidance from the third Hokage. The Hokage's fourth student. This was supreme honor, and many people were jealous. Obito was incredibly jealous, and his diligence in training during this period was enough to rival Might Guy. Whether it was windy or rainy, he would insist on completing his training every day. He did not want to be left behind. But he was not the only one who didn't want to be left behind. Asuma was furious when he heard the news. He was already dissatisfied with his Hokage father, who was always working and neglecting his son and family. Now he would rather spend time with other children than care about his own son. Therefore, Asuma had also been working very hard during this period, wanting to defeat Kazan and make his Hokage father regret it. In short, the atmosphere at the Ninja Academy was extremely competitive during this time, so competitive that Might Guy shouted every day, "This is youth." Time passed like this for a while. During these days, Kazan would create over a dozen shadow clones every day to conduct various types of training. Rokushiki Monstrous Strength Fist and the Fist Bone series of moves. As for the two-color haki and even three-color haki, he could only explore them himself. Every time he dispelled his clones, it would make him uncomfortable for a while, washed over by the dizzying influx of massive training memories. Whenever this happened, he would eat a big meal, then have a good sleep, and wake up refreshed to continue training. He enjoyed this feeling of becoming stronger. As a modern person living in a 3D world without superpowers, he was deeply immersed in this feeling of being able to fly and burrow through the ground. One day, Kazan ran to the Forest of Death to eat breakfast as usual, then ran to the back mountain to train. During this time, his strength had improved rapidly. Tree climbing, water walking, and monstrous strength fist training allowed him to complete the fusion of the two combat systems from the Naruto world and the One Piece world. Kazan, however, was very calm and did not get arrogant, because he hadn't even punched a mountain to pieces yet. When he could punch two mountains to pieces like Garp, at that point, he could go almost anywhere in the ninja world. Bang! 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 Kazan punched the surface of the back mountain, one punch after another. One could see that the area around him was covered in gravel, all smashed by Kazan's fists, from a giant boulder, piece by piece. With a whoosh, an Anbu ninja wearing an animal mask appeared not far from him. "The Hokage wants to see you." After saying this, the other party disappeared without a trace. Very characteristic of the Anbu. Tusk so pretentious. Kazan decided to give these Anbu posers a little shock. He saw the chakra in his body surging, gathering at his feet at an extremely fast speed. The next moment, within 0.36 seconds, he didn't know how many times he stomped on the ground, only that the resulting reaction force sent him moving forward like lightning. Saru. Swish. The Anbu ninja, who was rushing back at high speed, only felt a blur before his eyes, and the next second, Kazan disappeared from his sight. What is this? He was shocked. Was this the speed a genin should have? Kazan enjoyed the feeling of tearing through the air. This was the result of the fusion of the two combat systems of Naruto and One Piece. Using chakra to further increase the speed of Soru, the speed surpassed the body flicker technique. Crash! The sound of shattering glass resounded through the office. What do you want with me, old man Hiruzen? Kazan arrived quickly because it wasn't far. He had a good habit of not using the front door. Starting from the back mountain, heading straight for the Hokage office, he incidentally shattered the glass of Hiruzen Sarutobai's office with a single punch. You really need to change this habit. The room needs to be ventilated, especially since you smoke. His excuse was very sufficient, but Hiruzen Sarutobi now just wanted to kick him out. He had been Hokage for so long, and no one had ever dared to smash his office glass. This is the result of indulgence, Hiruzen. At this moment, Danzo also walked out of the shadows. Kazan had discovered Danzo long ago. Although his observation haki hadn't awakened yet, he could feel it and was about to master it. His sensory system was particularly acute now, as if he had his chakra detection technique turned on at all times. "You're here, Kazan." Hiruzen Sarutobi ignored Danzo and showed concern for Kazan. "How has your training been lately?" "Very smoothly. My control over chakra has improved a lot." "Ignoring me? Disappointing." Danzo's evaluation of Kazan in his heart dropped even lower. This kind of reckless guy didn't fit the temperament of their route. They were Konoha heroes walking in the darkness, not clowns seeking attention. "Hiruzen, now is not the time for idle chat," Danzo interrupted them. Hiruzen Sarutobi glanced at Danzo sideways and then said, "The matter is a bit sudden, but I have a mission to entrust to you now." "A mission?" Kazan was surprised. Did he want him to leave the village with Danzo for training? "You want me to leave the village for a mission?" "No need to leave the village. Soon, Konoha will hold the Chunin exams, and I intend to let you participate." "Huh? The Chunin exams at such a sensitive time?" At present, border conflicts between countries were escalating rapidly, and war could break out at any time. And yet, Hiruzen Sarutobi chose to hold the Chunin exams at such a time. What was the consideration behind this? Simply to deter foreign enemies. To let other ninja villages know that even after losing the killer Sakumo Hatake, the future generation of Konoha had arrived. But by doing this, wouldn't he be exposing the geniuses of his own village to other ninja villages? Once the Third Great Ninja War broke out in full force, he would definitely be targeted by enemies. This, damn it, was putting himself in danger. Hiruzen Sarutobi didn't explain, but Kazan still accepted the mission. If he performed well in the Chunin exams, could he complete one or two achievements? Moreover, looking at Hiruzen Sarutobi's expression, it seemed he was hinting that he would explain later. Sure enough, when Kazan returned to the back mountain to train, Hiruzen Sarutobi, having finished his official duties, appeared in front of him. "Are you curious why I would let a ninja with no mission experience participate in the Chunin exams at a time like this?" "Yes, I really don't understand. Kakashi is already on the kill-on-sight list of other ninja villages. Sending me to participate in the Chunin exams, what's the point? To deter other villages." This kid was indeed very smart, but he didn't think far enough. However, being able to think of so much at this age was already outstanding. "You only guessed part of it." Hiruzen Sarutobi familiarly lit the tobacco in his pipe. The alliances between ninja villages are very fragile, especially the alliances between the 5 great ninja villages. Hiruzen Sarutobi had understood this truth when he was very young. Ever since his teacher, the second Hokage, died on the way back. Although that was the result of the Gold and Silver Brothers' rebellion and coup, from the perspective of Kumigakure, they were happy to see such a big figure as Tobirama Senju die. So what? Kazan understood the logic, but he still didn't understand the reason for Hiruzen Sarutobi's actions. After the Second Shinobi World War ended, we reached strategic alliances with the Land of Lightning, Land of Wind, Land of Fields, Land of Grass, etc. Among them, the alliance agreement with the Land of Lightning was signed personally by my teacher, the second Hokage. This kind of alliance can bring huge benefits to both sides in times of peace, creating wealth through trade and promoting mutual development. However, in times of war, such an alliance is as fragile as a piece of paper. Once the war breaks out in full force, the Land of Lightning and the Land of Wind will not hesitate to tear up the alliance and may even launch an attack on us directly. The key point came. Kazan noticed that Hiruzen Sarutobi only mentioned the Land of Lightning and the Land of Wind. What about the other villages? I did not misjudge you, Kazan. You are very sharp and smart. Hiruzen Sarutobi's eyes held appreciation as he slowly exhaled a puff of smoke and continued. The other ninja villages are the reason I asked you to participate in the Chunin exams. We need to show our strength and win the support of those ninja villages. Kazan understood now. This meant they were afraid those cannon fodder wouldn't be willing to be dogs for Konoha. Every ninja world war caused huge casualties. Even cage-level powerhouses had the risk of dying in battle. The second Mizukage and the second Tsuchikage killed each other in the first Ninja World War. Carefully cultivated ninjas, once they reached the meat grinder of war, their lives were as short and fragile as flowers. But once the war was won, the benefits brought were unimaginable. Whether it was ceding land or paying reparations, or both, it could benefit a village for decades, and the losses of the war would be replenished in a short time. But those small ninja villages didn't have the strength to lead the war. When they were involved in the war, they could only be forced to attach themselves to the 5 great ninja villages. Therefore, Konoha needed to show enough powerful strength to win over these ninja villages, to willingly be cannon fodder, and help Konoha win the war. This generation of Konoha powerhouses included Hiruzen Sarutobi himself, the Sannin Orochimaru, Jiraiya Tsunade, Danzo, the Uchiha and Hyuga clans, etc. In the younger generation, there were geniuses like Minato Namikaze, as well as wizards like Shikaku Nara, who played with brains. However, this was not enough. Hiruzen Sarutobi also wanted to show Konoha's more prosperous future and the next generation, letting those ninja villages know that only by following Konoha would there be a future. No wonder this guy suddenly taught me monstrous strength fist, so this is what he was waiting for. Kazan's vigilance against Hiruzen Sarutobi increased a few more points in his heart. This Hokage was truly a man who wouldn't wake up early without profit. I understand, I will do this task well. It's good that you understand. Hiruzen Sarutobi thought highly of Kazan's future, otherwise he wouldn't have patiently explained so much to him. By the way, I have taken the liberty of helping you graduate from the Ninja Academy early. You are now a Konoha Genin. Of course. You still need this. Hiruzen Sarutobi took something out of his arms and handed it to Kazan. A Konoha ninja headband. This headband has accompanied me for many years. I am giving it to you now, hopping it can bring you good luck. Hiruzen Sarutobi's ninja headband. Kazan was slightly surprised. It seemed this guy really thought highly of him. But in this way, he could also be considered tied to the Hokage faction by Hiruzen Sarutobi. Kazan took the headband and tied it around his forehead. He had already weighed the pros and cons in his heart. Joining Hiruzen Sarutobi's team now only had benefits for him, no downsides. At the very least, it could avoid being targeted by Danzo, the Pot Shadow, and most importantly, not having to worry about being backstabbed by his own people. Chapter 25, S-Rank Mission. The Konoha of today is no longer as powerful as it was under the leadership of Hashirama and Tobirama. The First Shinobi World War. Konoha's opponents were the other 4 great ninja villages. After Hashirama passed away, the other villages grew envious of the abundant resources of the Land of Fire, and all wanted a share of the spoils. The final result was this. Under the leadership of Tobirama, Konoha managed to win the war with great difficulty and preserved its territory. By the time of the Second Shinobi World War, the protagonist was no longer Konoha, but the Hidden Rain Village. Hanzu, known as the demigod, attempted to expand the territory of the Hidden Rain Village, pushing a policy of territorial expansion and initiating war against other ninja villages. The first targets of the Hidden Rain Village were the Land of Iron, Konoha, and Sunagakure. In this Shinobi World War, the pressure Konoha faced was much smaller, with its main opponents being the Hidden Rain Village, Sunagakure, and Iwagakure. But if another major war were to break out soon and Konoha were to be besieged again, Hiruzen Sarutobi did not have enough confidence to lead the village through it safely. Therefore, Konoha needed allies who would stand in front of Konoha. Those countries and villages that shared a border with the Land of Fire were the ones Konoha needed to win over. Hiruzen Sarutobi would arrange for the battlefield to be located in these places, far away from Konoha and the Land of Fire. Therefore, the difficulty of this mission is S rank. Passing the assessment was not the purpose of Kazan's mission. Passing the Chunin exams in a dominant fashion was the goal of his mission. There is about half a month left until the Chunin exams begin. You must prepare well during these days, Kazan. I will. Kazan indicated that he would give it his all. The Chunin exams were never just a simple test for genin to be promoted to Chunin. It was founded by the second Hokage, Tobirama, and was held twice a year. Its purpose was to showcase the strength of the ninja village. The main source of income for ninjas and ninja villages came from mission commissions. Showing off their strength and attracting other countries to commission missions was the true meaning of the Chunin exams. And this time, the Chunin exams had an additional layer of meaning. The news had not been leaked, but inside Konoha, many people had already learned of it. This time, the Chunin exams would be held in Konoha. The rosters and venues needed to be arranged by others, while Hiruzen Sarutobi was the one issuing the orders. Coincidentally, Shinku Yuhai became one of the proctors for these Chunin exams. What? He is going to participate in the Chunin exams at such a young age. I was also taken aback at first. I never expected that a child who had never left the village to execute a mission would directly participate in the Chunin exams. How could the third Hokage agree to such a thing? As far as I know, the third Hokage personally designated Kazan to participate. Shinku Yuhai was sitting in his backyard drinking tea, enjoying a rare moment of leisure. His wife poured him tea and knelt beside him. Why is that? I am afraid it has to do with the recent atmosphere at the borders. Shinku Yuhai's intelligence was not as high as Shikaku's, but among those who could become Jonin, few were truly foolish. By piecing together some minor details, it was easy to arrive at the correct answer. Are you saying that the third Hokage intends to let that child intimidate the other ninja villages? Mrs. Yuhai found it inconceivable. He is the best candidate. After all, he is a genius who defeated Kakashi head-on, and don't forget, he is the third Hokage's fourth disciple. Is that so? However, isn't it too risky? After all, Kazan is going to participate in the Chunin exams. While the couple was talking, Kurenai Yuhai happened to return home from school. She had been missing the times when Kazan would cause trouble everywhere, giving her a chance to go find him. Unlike now, she didn't even know where Kazan had run off to. She only knew that he seemed to be receiving guidance from the third Hokage. She had originally planned to find an excuse to go see Kazan, but ended up hearing her parents' conversation. Kurenai, you're back. The couple turned around, but Kurenai Yuhai ignored that and rushed over, asking, Dad, did you just say that Kazan is going to participate in the Chunin exams? Oh yes. This matter could not be hidden, so he nodded straightforwardly. How can this be? Kazan hasn't even left the village once. Kazan was very strong, but at the end of the day, he was still just a student. Even Kakashi had to go out and gain some experience, obtaining the permission of his team leader Jonin before participating in the exam. How could the third Hokage do such a thing? The third Hokage naturally has his reasons. Before he could finish the last two words, Kurenai Yuhai had already turned and walked out of the house. Judging by her appearance, she was probably going to find that boy named Kazan. Don't you need to go after Kurenai? No need, they will be back soon. On the other side, as expected, Kurenai Yuhai's small figure soon appeared in the mountains behind the village. Watching Kazan, who was still punching away with bang, bang sounds, she was shocked that he was using a mountain as a punching post, but what she needed to do now was get him to cancel this Chunin exams participation. Kazan, come with me quickly and explain it clearly to the third Hokage. You must not participate in these Chunin exams. I have already accepted. It's too dangerous, Kazan. You simply don't understand how dangerous the Chunin exams are. This is not the Ninja Academy graduation assessment. The Chunin exams are where people die. Who says people don't die in the Ninja Academy graduation assessment? Kazan thought to himself, many people die in the Kirigakure graduation exam. I know there is some danger, but this is a mission given to me by the old man third Hokage. Old man's third Hokage. As expected of Kazan, daring to address the Hokage-sama like that. No, this is not the time to talk about such things. What mission? It's not a secret mission, there's no harm in telling you. He concealed the news that a war was about to break out, telling Kurenai only that this was to help the village attract more commissions. The reason was that after experiencing the Second Shinobi World War, the village needed a large amount of funds. So that's it, wait Kazan, your forehead. Only then did Kurenai notice the ninja forehead protector on Kazan's forehead. It was not brand new, and certainly not old, but Kurenai just felt that this probably wasn't a new item. It was given to me by Old Man Third Hokage. Kazan took off the forehead protector and tossed it casually to the curious Kurenai Yuhai. The latter hurriedly caught it. This was the ninja forehead protector of the Third Hokage. It could practically be considered a personal item bestowed by the daimyo. This was equivalent to telling others that he, Kazan, was under the protection of the Third Hokage. That's it for today's chapter. If you enjoyed it, like, comment, and subscribe to Infinite Novel Audio. For more stories, check out my other channel AI Otaku Studio, and I'll see you in the next chapter.